자 이러면 재정비에서 맥클이 앞서서 나가면 야.
Oh my goodness, the shadow hits like 3 meters.
That's enormous.
这个后续感觉有点
哇，这一波提前联动起果效果还不错。
转流期出来，收掉了。
地上面的这个暴风雪，
被吸了
直接被 Prone 的动能捕获所吃掉。这个等了半天的暴风雪并没有取得效果。Vidozing 的胜果然在这种。
Welcome everyone, we are back for more action here at the Overwatch League. ZP here with Jake, and Jake, we're kicking off here with what should be an interesting one as the Charge take on the Spark.
Yeah, this is another tough match to call, and personally, I'm a bit torn. You know, I am a DPS player at heart, so I'm still biased, I think, towards those players. And it's going to be Happy taking on Architect when it comes to the hit scan duel, which I'm personally pretty excited to see the outcome of.
And take a look at the Charge starting lineup here, and nothing changing between yesterday and today, and why would they? The Charge looked very impressive yesterday, and I think about what Eileen and Happy were doing together as a DPS duo, backed up by Krong. It was impressive.
Yeah, typically I think of Eileen as a player who specializes in Sombra, you know, focuses on the other flankers, but his Tracer was nothing less than top tier last night, really was a key difference maker, took on Prophet in the 1v1 multiple times, which, you know, that's a feat in and of itself, especially in the form Prophet found himself in last night. So Charge are a force to be reckoned with. The question will be, I think, in my mind, is can the Spark live up to their expectations? They have signed Architect. Does he give them that big boost that they're hoping for?
And, I mean, shifting gears to the Spark starting lineup, that was a little bit more muted than I was expected. You were singing Architect's praises and then some, and I'm going to go in there and also just praise QOQ. I think another great addition to the lineup, and look, it's already worked out quite well for the Spark, taking down the New York Excelsior yesterday in what was a thriller of a matchup. So, again, I think we could be in for a show between these two teams.
I hope so. You know, and you know, to sing Architect's praises a little higher, I think maybe I missed my opportunity there. I do want to get into that. I think one of the things that makes him such an impressive player, such a fun player to watch, is that he goes beyond the traditional hit scan core role, where we see a lot of players who are incredibly good at Widowmaker in the Overwatch League. You start to feel like that's normal in the Overwatch League. It's not. I mean, these guys are absolute freaks of nature. But not all of those players who are strong at Widow can also bring their skills to the Genji, to the Tracer, you know, across the board really in the DPS lineup. But Architect, he's one of those players. He's got the flexibility. He's not limited to one classic role of DPS or another. So that could be an asset for the Spark as they like to go through the compositions, especially with Brig out of the pool. Very possible we might see a bit of Genji.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very unique sort of player, right? Where you think about specialization in Overwatch, and there's a reason why you look at players and you go, oh, that player, you know, he's really known for hit scan, and you'll usually only see the player in hit scan. Or you have other players that are more projectile specialists, and like you said, it's a rare breed, but it does exist, where players like Architect, you know, someone that can do both, and not just both in the, oh, he's versatile, but is he actually great? Not really. But no, actually do both at the highest levels of play. That's just exciting to see.
Architect, I mean, if I'm going to say two top heroes for him, it is the Widow and the Genji, you know, at least from my experience watching him play. So that's pretty rare, right, that your top two heroes are not in the same core role of DPS. Pretty rare stuff. We'll see if they're actually able to make use of it. Last night we saw a ton of mirror matching. That Widow Tracer with the double shield and the Bab Zen, that was played throughout most of the match that we saw last night between the Charge and the Dynasty. So I'm curious to see if Spark wants to continue that trend, take the mirror match against Charge, or if they want to shake things up, bring out a new look. Architect starting on Junkrat. I love it, Architect. I love it. I was already a fan, but now you've really convinced me. I'm on Team Spark.
Yeah, so I think what I've learned here, Jake doesn't take monetary bribes, but he does take bribes in the form of giving him some Junkrat play, give him someone to live vicariously through, and look, I'm excited to see it.
This could be epic. I don't know if he's really going to do it. He might, though. I mean, this is a map I think is pretty playable on. Nope. No. All right. Well, you know, the flying, the Sky Rat, I'll take it. I'll take what I can get. Speed boost into the Far Mercy comp. Happy is going to be on the Widow, though, so Architect, he's going to have to watch his head, or Happy will take it right off. As well with Eileen and the Tracer. My question is, can Bebe survive? Mika is going to have to stay with Architect.
Yeah, I was going to say, notably, Happy was on the 76, but okay, Happy swapped it off to the 76. Nothing crazy here. This is what we saw yesterday, and it was pretty effective versus the Pharah play coming out from Seoul. And now, the Charge working on the ground here. Going to have to dodge Architect, waiting for Happy to apply pressure. Godsby already in danger, taken down by Eileen.
Oh, he fell off the map. He uses recall early and didn't have it for that engagement. Eileen wins that one. And that's going to be the mid fight now for the Charge. So Eileen's Tracer gameplay coming up strong. And these Farrakhamps have just not worked out, ZP. In the past few days we've seen them. They just haven't really found any success. Eileen cleans up there, but it's really a team effort by the Charge to get such a dominant mid fight. I honestly am not a fan of the Far Mercy comp, ZP. The Far Mercy might be effective on their own, but they leave players like Bebe on the Ana, leave him out to dry, and that means that Godsby is going to have limited healing, and just the aggression, I think, from the Charge is going to mean that unless Architect gets opening kills, it's so hard to leverage this Far Mercy.
Yeah, I just wonder if Eileen stole Prophet's power after the game yesterday. The open up with that many eliminations, a bunch of cleanup, but all right, Shu down, QOQ all over it. The Spark, a much better opening here, but the Charge, they're not really going to have the healing they would like to start things out. Eileen still have the opportunity to look for some eliminations here, but Rio out of the fight. This is tough for the Charge. I think they go for the reset.
Yeah, when you are going to win these fights, though, this is how it happens. It's because the aggression comes in from the Spark with their front line all the way in, while Bebe is still back on a very passive high ground. He cannot commit his body, or else he's almost certainly going to die to this Lucio Mara dive. There's just so much aggression potential from the Chargers comp. Pretty much every hero except Soldier 76 can be jumping on that Ana. Cleanup's taking a bit longer than expected, though, so Charge, they're getting a lot of value out of this extended contest. It's going to set themselves up well to win the round overall. But the cleanup's still all Sparks. They're just charging up all their ultimates, and now we're going to have a very explosive fight coming up next.
Yeah, I think the delay was pretty good from the Charge, though. I mean, added to their progress now. I still think they need 2 fights, but it's kind of almost a fight and a half for the Spark. The return fight won't have a lot of time, so the Charge are well positioned here, and they don't have to win this next fight, Jake.
Yeah, definitely. I think Spark, though, they're in the hot seat right now. They've got a ton of ultimates. They need to use them well and get the fight win. I think if they give up the flip now, they're in really dire straits to win the round. They need to maintain the control of the point while they fight here. Nano onto the Pharah, but as we talked about, Bebe going down so fast, not really much you can do to prevent that against this comp.
Architect needs to get a little bit more done here. The Nano is faded. Architect still has the Barrage moving forward. Drops the Barrage over the top. Looking for it, and the Charge mostly able to get away. Gushue taken down, and the Charge have a great opportunity to come back in here. Architect still looking for anything meaningful, but a lot of the fight is going around in areas where Architect is not.
Yeah, and point has to be held on to. Charge has so much presence on the point, and Char almost has a sound barrier. Tactical Visor comes out, and that's going to be the death of Architect and his Mercy with his wings clipped. But, ooh, managing to stay alive is Mika because QOQ shuts down the Tactical Visor. So Spark, they're trying to hold on with this Primal.
Choose Orb in the right place, right time. Charge are going to get the flip back onto the point. And now this is tough for the Spark, though the late kill on the shoot from Gushue gives the Spark a great opportunity to just head back on the point. Eileen's out of it, the sleep setting it up. And just like that, the Spark, they could have a really quick retake here, Jake.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're going to need here. Beautiful Nano onto Gushue. He's cleaving through everybody. The beat comes down, but it's only onto 2 because Gushue just zoned them out in the corner. And he's chasing for more with this Nano. That beat was almost no impact there for Char. Going to be regretting that one, I think, as the point going to quickly come back in the favor of the team in pink.
Yeah, the problem here, as I see it, is the Spark that regained control. Still, one fight's going to turn it away. Both teams pretty drained, though, so I do wonder Godspeed can just get a quick Pulse Bomb limb.
Yeah, Pulse Bomb would make all the difference here. Krong does have the mines. The question is now, can Bebe be better protected now that Architect is on the Doomfist? Can he do a little bit more to control space? But Happy's on the McCree. That's a great answer to a Doom. But Godspeed, early stick onto Happy. That's the counter for Architect. So now Architect can go crazy in the backline.
Yeah, the Spark, 2 quick eliminations, exactly what they need from Godspeed, and as a result, the Charge, this is going to be tough. I think Rio's still lurking, can head on the point, use Primal delay, but now Krong's out of it, and the Charge, they have to hope for a miracle. They need Eileen to channel his inner Prophet.
Yeah, it needs something here, but it's so rough. That minefield is well placed by QOQ. That's zoning out the backline, so Shu can't really come in despite having the Coalescence. Architect charging the punch and destroys Rio. Rio does pop the Primal, but he's losing HP fast, and it's not clear he's going to be able to finish off Bebe.
Well, Happy is able to get QOQ, gives his life for it, though. Spark still in a decent spot. Rio, though, taking down Bebe. The Charge do have an opportunity here. Architect had to go pretty far away. Rio staying alive for now, though, still pretty low.
Oh.
Able to shake the pressure. No.
Nobody's on point. Oh, Charge. That fight was anybody's game, I think. It was still in contest. I don't think Charge was, like, decisively winning that, but they needed to touch the point. They had 5 players up near the point. Like, ooh, that's a rough one. You got to write that one off, though, if you're the Charge. You got to move on quick because mentally you can't get too focused on that one. That's unlucky. Unlucky, as some people would say.
Yeah, I would say for the Charge, it just felt like they were really doing their best to keep the point in contest, not really commit, keep everyone still alive. But when you're doing that, you're using line of sight a lot. And, you know, in the course of doing that, you hit points where no one is actually on the objective, and the Charge are just off the objective a little bit too long there. Now we move over into Ruins, and, you know, see a lot of looks here on this round, but you gotta think it comes down to the Widows.
This is the mirror match that really defined the series last night between the Charge and the Dynasty. So I'm wondering, is this going to be a continued look that we see, especially as we get into Escort and maps where it's a little bit more of a classic style? Godsby versus Happy. Architect's actually going to be on the Tracer, so won't be playing the Widow. Godsby going to be taking that role. Architect continuing to display his flexibility, but so far it's the Charge taking the lead. 2 kills on this mid fight. That should be open and shut for them.
It's really difficult to stay in the fight when you lose your Orisa that early. The shield is out of the way. It gives Widow in the back more room to work with, and the Spark just have to give up ground. As a result, the Charge should be getting their first control of the round. They do, and Eileen even finding Godspeed towards the end. This is a really good start to the Charge.
Yeah, Happy was just such a shining light for the Charge last night that I'm just wondering if Spark have any answers. Godsby's a great Widow in his own right, but Happy's one of those players really looking for best in the league, and there he wins the duel. Now he's going to have free reign. If he just goes to one of these high grounds, there's no pressure on him. He doesn't even want to back off yet, though. He's pushing for more kills, more damage. Godsby started that round off pretty decently, but now it's all Happy in control.
And this is one of the problems when you're going up against a Widow that's in defensive spot, where Happy most of the time is going to get, you know, one good early shot before Godspeed can even get in position. And, you know, the problem with Happy is he's good enough that he's going to land a lot of them.
And this Infrasight is going to make the next fight so difficult for the Spark. Godsby's only at 80%, so he's not going to be able to charge it with a quick body shot. And I think more than enabling Happy himself, this just enables the whole team from the side of the Charge here. They're going to go for a halt on the back of their amplification matrix, both teams committing that ability.
This is such a nice angle from Happy. It's going to force a Spark back, and they still haven't fully respected it. Finally, a little bit of pressure towards Happy, but meanwhile, look towards Eileen. Eileen, under pressure, gets hit with the Discord Orb, but still just threatening from the back, waiting for the pulse bomb attempt. Happy over the top. The Spark getting pummeled as they approach. Everyone's still alive, though, in QOQ. Gonna go for the Flux. Throwing him up into the air, forces out the Transcendence. Eileen still alive, just barely. As Architect takes down the Immortality Field. That's about it for now, and Eileen finally gets caught and chased down by Architect. The Spark have an opportunity, but they've lost Mika.
They commit the trance, though, and with no counter trance available for the Charge, remember, they use that ability to survive the Gravitic Flux. Now Spark, they should be getting control at this point. 90% capture, though, has been acquired for the Guangzhou Charge, so they're sitting pretty in a good spot here, I think, to win this map and force to a map 3, rather a round 3 on this first map.
Yeah, and this is, again, for Spark, I think you look to the Widow, right? Where the Widow has a really nice spot here on the defense. Okay, Happy doesn't care. Happy going for a super aggressive hook shot. Gets pulled in by the halt. Lucky nothing worse happened there as Godspeed was repositioning.
And it's only going to be the Supercharger to work with for Gushue, so the positioning of the Supercharger is going to be critical. That ultimate needs to last a long time, needs to deliver a lot of value over the course of the team fight. I like the way Godsby is playing so defensively, but this is a nice angle by Happy. Eventually he's going to be able to start clicking on that head from Gushue.
Yeah, Gushue, I mean, Gushue is stuck between a rock and a hard place here, and okay, well, the rock ends up winning, as it turns out. Charge, 2 quick eliminations, and the Spark are in danger. This is where you look to Architect, you look to Godspeed. You need an equalizing elimination, you need it now. The Charge, meanwhile, continuing to clean up. Not much room left for Architect to work with.
That fight was just over so quickly. The amplification matrix from Chara amped up a right click from Shu that just completely eviscerated Gushue. He had good health, was sitting behind a shield, and then it was just all gone in a second. That's just the danger you're working with playing against this Bab Zen composition, and that map felt a little bit easy for the Charge. That was a little bit of a Widow difference right there, ZP.
Yeah, and I mean, it just comes down to the part that Happy is consistent. Happy is not missing opportunities given. And, you know, and even look at Godsby on the other side and go like, Godsby was playing terribly. Just the window of opportunity was so incredibly small there. And the advantage, once you get control for a defending Widow, is pretty profound.
Oh, yeah, and that's just a map where, you know, Ruins on Ilios, since Overwatch came out, that's a map that's been dominated by Widow. Sightlines from spawn to spawn, it's a little bit ridiculous for a control map that a Widow is just so incredibly dominant there. If you're playing that at home in your ladder games, you're going to want to have a Widow on that map. It's just disgusting, the amount of sightline control you can have from a very safe position. So, you know, with Happy being as good as he is at Widowmaker, I don't think the Spark are necessarily expected to win that map.
Yeah, I think you have to go back to Goats era really to get to a time where you could avoid playing the Widow, where that's where you could be a little bit tanky on point, kind of avoid it, but not so much nowadays. But we do have a difference here. The Charge opening up with the Widow and the Spark instead going for about as close to Goats as you can get here with a pretty tanky May comp.
Yeah, they're going to go for the TP to point here, I think, and just try and bypass the spam damage headed out from Charge. You see Happy has this crazy high ground position, but is he going to be able to get there? Pretty much done with this immense amount of point presence. Instant cap coming in from the Spark. This strategy started to work out well, and ooh, I love that turret placement. It's going to make it impossible for anyone to drop in on them, but not going to do too much besides that, actually.
The Spark, I mean, their game plan here, they have to find an opportunity to dive in, but ooh, Bebe gets taken down when they're repositioning, and the Charge, this is something their comp's good at, Jake, just picking people apart with their mid-rotation.
Yeah, you know, I'm a little surprised the way that Spark elected to play that. They got control, but they pushed out so fast. I would have liked to see them just hold down, hunker onto the point, and maybe wait for an ability like the Coalescence to sort of enable one of those pushes out. Instead, they push out very early, having some confidence, but it ends up costing them pretty dearly, as giving up point control is quite painful playing this Sim and May.
This is greedy from Happy going in on this level of flank, and the problem with the Spark, because they have to play together, Jake, no one can easily go and actually deal with Happy, so it's smart Widow positioning here. It's something that they can't easily punish. The Charge, for now, they're going to give up a bit on the point, wait for an early pickoff, but this time it doesn't come through. Rio gets caught super early. Bebe going to drop the Cole on the point, and the Spark have done enough to get to the point safely.
Yeah, this is the playstyle I want to see, though, out of this Sim May comp. This is what's so annoying to deal with. They are going to TP out just to try and chase off some frags. This is fine, I think, but what's pretty surprising that Shu commits the Transcendence there. They're staying in this fight until the bitter end, but the May wall is committed, sorry, the Sim wall is committed on point, and that's just going to make them so difficult to evict from that position.
Yeah, I'm not on board with using the Transcendence there, where I get it. They had one person backdoor to point, but that was a mess. People were down. The Transcendence wasn't really getting a whole lot of value besides moving Shu over onto the point, and it just felt forced, and they don't really have a lot of time left, Jake. 60% right now for the Spark.
Yeah, and they're sitting on so many crucial ultimates. The fact that the Spark have a sound barrier they haven't been forced to deploy. Krong already uses Gravitic Flux. This round is looking awfully desperate here for the Charge. I don't know how they're going to be able to get back into this. Somebody needs to make a hero play, because if it just comes down to ultimate economy, Spark are absolutely going to destroy the Charge in this next fight.
I think you have to look to Eileen again, where, look, we've seen a lot of heroic pulse bombs coming on in, and this will be the time. Eileen takes on Architect, but it's not without a cost. Gives up his life in the process. Does mean that Blizzard isn't going to be coming through. Now Gushue holding on to the shadow of the Charge a little bit further back. Godspeed gets picked off, and the Charge, if they can just keep Rio alive, they have a chance with QOQ. Ends up finding two. Happy still around at the point. Eileen over. It's not quite done yet, but with Krong out of it, this is a pretty back and forth fight. One that, even with the Charge getting the flip, the Spark are ready to go right back in.
Charge are getting the flip, but look at Happy's HP. He can't really contribute anything into this fight. Architect still has the Blizzard, so once this point gets under control for Spark, he'll be able to just zone point, kill off that first tank who has the misfortune of being forced to contest into a Blizzard. So this fight's looking pretty grim. Bebe as well, doing a great job charging up that Coalescence, and it doesn't seem like they're even going to be able to touch. They aren't. Spark, just a tactical victory there, frankly.
Yeah, and I think, I kind of referenced it a little bit, talking about, okay, well, one of the power of old GOAT-style compositions that you just went to the point directly, right? You made the other team wait to pick you off. You got objective advantage, and, I mean, we kind of saw that there, where that's as close as you get, where you run a May comp with a Moira backing it up, and for the Spark, they prioritized the objective beyond everything else. They didn't really give the Charge a lot of opportunities to pick people off, and even with a little bit of a rough start there, they still brought it back, maintained control.
Yeah, I think that was a bit of a strategic outplay there. The value of the May and the Symmetra, can't be overstated on that point, especially when there's no Brigida on the other side, right? Normally, you're going to want to, in order to deal with the May and the Sim, you'll be playing that fast brawl style where maybe you have a Brig and a Doomfist and a Ryan of your own. But instead, the Spark elected for a very heavy poke style composition, but one that just didn't have that stopping power to actually get themselves onto point. Even with the spam coming in, Bebe was just constantly charging up those Coalescences, and that all allowed them to push out aggressively. So they're playing a nice passive hold, farm the Cole, push out aggressively, and it's just sort of rinse and repeat from there. The Cole charges so fast and the other ultimates are so high impact that the Spark just get a ton of value out of that position.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how things develop going forward for the Charge, where close quarter combat didn't really seem to be their forte. But we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, Map 2 is underway. Can the Charge find a bounce back? We're going to see.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Pringles Wavy, Big Crunch, Big Flavor. And by Zip Chair Game, the official chair supplier of the Overwatch League. Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
The Spark starting off strong against the Charge, up one map to kick off the series, but now the Charge, Jake, they get to go to a map they think is going to serve to be a much better map for them, where it's going to be Junkertown, and the long range definitely going to be up Happy's alley.
Yeah, if there was one place where the Charge had a decisive advantage on Ilios, it was in the Widow duel. Ruins was just a blowout of a round there, where Charge was in total control. And to be honest, that map, although overall Ilios went the way of the Spark, when the teams matched up on that Widow Tracer double shield with the BAP and the Zen, that's where the Charge seemed the most comfortable, seemed the most confident. And as we go into Escort, Hybrid, and 2CP map types, to be honest, I expect to see more of the same when it comes to that Widow Tracer. So despite Spark being up one, if the compositional matchups go the same way they went last night, I could easily see the Charge coming back in this series.
Yeah, I think for the Charge, the difference between the two teams here is that, at least for how the Charge likes to play, I don't think they want to get into any compositional matchups where they have to deal with the Spark up close and personal. I think the more that they can stick to a more range style of engagement, especially anything that allows Happy to play the Widow, I think the Charge are going to be all the more better for it. And now you're going to Junkertown. It's a map that really does let a team use longer range tactics. So I think this is going to be more of a test here for the Spark against the Charge, but also it's hard to say, right? Where, okay, the Spark had a little bit of trouble on the Ruin stage, but they also could just be warming up, and we'll see what they really have in store as we move into Junkertown.
Yeah, this is the moment, I think, for Godsby to really step up and show that he can match Happy blow for blow. Because if he can't, we are going to be looking at a tough series here for the Spark, despite being up 1-0. It's a rare circumstance, I think, where I'm actually worried for the team that's up 1-0. But it seemed last night that the Widow duel was just critical to this current meta with the hero pool, at least the way teams in the Asia-Pacific region are approaching it. The Widow is just so strong, so dominant, that winning the duel means everything to your team. And if Happy can be as consistent as he was in that Widow duel, then I think the rest of the series is looking pretty good for the Charge, especially going into these later map types.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how Junkertown plays out here. And you take a look at the Charge heading out of the gate. And this is a little bit interesting because we just talked about, long range, which you would expect out of Junkertown.
He's trolling. There's no way he's playing Reaper on this map.
Yeah, I was about
Reaper
to
is
say,
so
like,
bad on Junkertown.
I mean, I've seen worse. And usually
no Lucio, you're probably not playing Reaper without Lucio. That's the real tell. You kind of need that hero.
Yeah, well, I mean, so they stick with the game plan. This is
yeah,
what they do.
I mean, this is Junkertown, right? If you got Happy on your team, Junkertown, you got to just play Widow. Although he's going up against a double sniper composition from the side of the Spark. I'm curious to see whether Architect is going to commit or just throw out a Sonic to help Godspeed open the map up and then maybe back off, spam it off. Yeah, it looks like he is going to switch over to the Tracer. Yeah,
I was going to say if they stayed on the double sniper, I think it would have made Happy just have to wait for Eileen to set up a distraction rather than trying to take on both at the same time. I mean, Happy's pretty good, but I would not like those odds even a little bit. But now it's underway, and we'll see just what Happy has in his sights. Godspeed getting stuck with the Discord Orb for a moment.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough map for the Widow right here. Oh, but Godspeed looking pretty sharp. Getting the headshot, instantly flicks down to sort of hide his head hitbox. That's one of those crucial techs that you'll see Widows and the Owl do quite a lot when they go for those jump shots.
Well, this is a really nice start for the Spark. They're man up. This gives Godspeed a lot more room to safely look for Happy on the other end, but the advantage will be over soon. Eileen going to be back to the battle before you know it, but Krong's out of it, so the Spark continue to get elimination after elimination. They put the Charge on the back foot, and the way this staggered out, Jake, I'm not even sure the Charge can come back in for point A.
That's beautiful work, quickly capitalizing on the Tracer pickoff. It might seem insignificant, but on this first point, one pickoff in the enemy Tracer meant that Architect was able to run into the back line, take control of that position where Happy wanted to play earlier behind that box where he has good sidelines. And once Happy couldn't play there anymore, he was sort of caught in an awkward corner and couldn't exhibit pressure onto the rest of the map. So the Spark get one pick and they absolutely run with it. So they're proving that they can definitely handle this composition as well.
The Charge looking to rebound. The Spark getting immense momentum to kick things off. And okay, Architect caught by Shu. That's definitely good for the Charge as they look to stabilize. IDK falling, and a little bit tough for the Spark given the momentum they were building.
It's better than good, actually. I think that's quite great here for the Charge to restabilize, because this is a part of the map where holding this high ground as the defenders right next to the attacker choke points where they like to push in can be really, really difficult to break. Godspeed taking a nice little off angle there, but I don't know how much he's going to be able to get done. And with Widow Tracer, it's going to be very hard for the attackers to break through the defender's shield advantage.
And the Charge are all set up here. And this is now a challenge for the Spark where there's nothing really coming up right this second to use to break this. They're going to be stuck poking for a little bit, at least waiting for Flux to come online. Architect working around here, and all right, Tracer v Tracer, down on the ground. Happy finds Bebe. Now Architect going back to his team as Happy has plenty of room to work with.
Oh, and he looks totally unscouted here. Gosh, he's so sharp. You just can't give this guy openings. That's a third kill for him. Pretty easy one to top it off after two beautiful headshots on the supports for the other team. I mean, just one of those things. It's like, how do you deal with that, right? This guy doesn't miss that much. You really just can't give many openings, but that's so much easier said than done. Eileen's in your back line, pressuring you, peppering you. The tanks are threats too, and Jesus, just let these guys out of spawn, Happy. Come on, man.
That was just one after another for Happy, and it wasn't even the flashiest of movements here. Just open shot, then another open shot. Totally fine. And it has a big effect, Jake, at just delaying the Spark.
Yeah, slows things down.
Are you kidding me?
I mean, come on. This guy doesn't miss. How do you play against this? Like, he just has to miss. I mean, Spark definitely won't win if if Happy doesn't miss. But I mean, even the Infrasight is out, but it just, like, how is Spark able to capitalize on this? Architect still coming back from the spawn. I feel like that's a bit early from Godspeed. They're not able to move forward at all with the Infrasight. Architect's Pulse Bomb, though, is enough. The drone didn't come out in time. Ooh, that's a painful mistake by Chara. Would have loved to get that drone out and keep his Orisa alive. Maybe thought she could just survive the Pulse Bomb without the help of the drone.
Well, they take the fight in close quarters, and Godspeed ends up getting caught. The Charge just rotate around, pick a better battlefield, and now there's a chance of turning around. But Shu gets caught by QOQ. 2 eliminations in this cubby hole. And the Spark find a way through. QOQ, just what the Spark needed.
Yeah, honestly, a bit of a slip-up, I think, from the Charge there, letting Rio die to that Pulse Bomb, but it ends up working out for the Spark, and they're now pushing forward. It should be a second-point cap. Charge, it's going to be so difficult to recontest. It's the nature of this Orisa comp that it's really, really strong at some things, but recontesting is just not one of them. So probably going to see a lot of teams just give up points once they lose map position. Makes the fight so difficult as to be not even worth taking.
Architect getting dinked there, just not in the head. And this is a little bit hard for the Charge also here, Jake, because 3.5 minutes of Spark, still have plenty of time. Even though teams do often lose a lot of time here on point C, I mean, the Charge need at least one good stop.
They definitely do, but Happy has the Infrasight. He's going to pop that now, so he can be the one to deliver. Architect is scouted through the Infrasight, so he's just going to have to back off the high ground. And Charge have a ton of map control right now. Spark, every movement is scouted here by the Infrasight, so it's just really rough to make any sort of opening. But if they can just survive through the timer, that's already a win, I think, for the attackers.
Well, the Infrasight is gone. The Spark's still at a full 6. The Charge, though, denying easy entry. You just see Krong up here making things very difficult for the Spark. And meanwhile, off the flank, Shu finds Gushue. The pressure from the Zen not to be ignored, and the Spark just fall apart on this attack.
Oh, man, Krong, he's such a threat in the side of the Spark. He's constantly pushing in aggressively, got so much value out of that kinetic grasp. It gave him a ton of shielding, and because of that, he's able to just control this stairwell, and that's sort of the perfect environment for a Sigma, where you can bounce those orbs all around in those small rooms, and even if you miss your initial target, you're probably going to splash somebody, probably going to charge up that ult real quick.
So you got about 2 minutes, 15 seconds left here for the Spark. Still plenty of time. 10 through Architect. Getting the Immortality Field. Nothing else besides that with Pulse Bomb. Rotating around, Eileen in hot pursuit, but on the other end, the Spark crushed the front line of the Charge. And the Spark now, 2 minutes left to go, still plenty of time, Jake.
That's a nice combo. We've seen the Amplification Matrix into the Fire Strike, but now in this composition what we're seeing is a full charge fire out of the Zen right when the Amplification Matrix comes down, and the damage threat on that is so incredible. It's just blowing up on Orisa before she's ready, before she can actually pop her own Fortify, so that's a pretty impressive quantity of damage if it's taking down the Orisa, one of the most durable characters in all of Overwatch.
Spark looking to take advantage. Transcendence still in reserve. Same though for the Charge. Charge open up with the Flux. Bebe holding on to the Transcendence. No need here just yet. Tracer in the back. Eileen nearly taking down Godsby. Finishes off. Godsby had 0 help there. Shu and drop the Transcendence now as the Charge look to finish things off. They don't have to worry about Godsby anymore. Architect under heavy pressure. Eileen, Pulse Bomb up. Going over the deal with the Tracer. Chara a little bit far up. Got caught by QOQ. The Spark starting to regroup here. Eileen hanging on to the Pulse Bomb. Goes for the stick. Connects. QOQ out of the fight. And that was badly needed for the Charge.
Yeah, aided by the Infrasight of Happy, really set that one up, made the Pulse Bomb just so much easier to land, and now Eileen is sort of cleaning up here with only 45 seconds left in the time bank. Spark, they've got to take a hard reset here. They've got to get all the way out of the map, but what that's going to do is just give all the control back to the Charge, and this is a map where there's so many positions a Widowmaker can play on third point. You know, so for Godsby to get back into this fight is going to be a challenge of its own. You got to clear so many awkward corners, so many angles on which Happy could be hiding.
So Spark, they had 3.5 minutes heading into point C. It's all just about drained. 20 seconds remaining. Final fight on the way. Gushue opens up. Supercharger on the bottom. The Charge hang on to high ground. Shu gets clipped by Gushue. And now, healing going to be a lot worse. Architect finds Happy. The big gun for the Charge is down. And the Spark on a 6v4. Ramping up here. The Charge getting poked down. But Eileen and Krong strike. They reverse the momentum. They take down their counterparts. And suddenly, the Charge have an opening to turn the fight completely around.
Yeah, despite those picks at the start, the Charge wisely elected to just keep control of that high ground, and because of that, they're rewarded with multiple picks as the fight goes along. So they are going to stop the card here on the end of third point. It's a great defense from them. Not enough, I think, to guarantee this map or give them a great odds of winning, but certainly they've set a win condition, and one that is more than doable, I think, for a team as competent as the Guangzhou Charge.
Yeah, and I mean, also, it was just a great recovery on point C where, I mean, the point A defense for the Charge wasn't particularly great. The Spark offense, very, very competent at sort of nullifying what Happy was looking for there. They got slowed down a little bit on point B, but again, you think about Spark able to take advantage when Charge tried to take the indoor fight. QOQ found immense opportunity, cleaned it up. The Spark got to point C with a good amount of time remaining, and then, you know, I think you called it out, the amount of angles the Charge that they were able to play was just a huge impediment to the Spark as they tried to get through point C.
Yeah, you know, I think for Spark, they seem to be coming out on top when it comes to especially these amplification matrix usages. They've been getting a ton of value, consistent pickoffs on the enemy tank line. But the one area where the Charge have continued to be dominant is the Widow duel. That's sort of what we expect out of Happy at this point. I feel bad for the guy. It's like, how can he even impress me anymore? I mean, with the ridiculous performances he puts up every time. The one day this guy does not get 2 picks a fight, I'm going to be like, oh, Happy, having an off day, I guess. Only 1 pick a fight, you know, looking rough. You know, that's a tough spot to be as a player, but one that you earn when you're that incredibly talented on the Widow.
The standards just keep going up and up. It reminds me, though, on the other end of the spectrum, anytime Bumper would play DPS last season, it's like, Bumper got killed. That's the best thing I've ever seen. It's like, well, you know, people just judge on what they expect. But we do have a pause here, so we'll give the teams a moment to sit down, think about what's going on, and, you know, you're a player in this position. Let's say you're at the Spark, you know, your attack wasn't the greatest here. What's going through your mind right now?
Well, I mean, you know, as you said, the attack wasn't the greatest, but it's definitely winnable right now. So if you're the Spark, you just have to focus on how do we get the win on this second map? How do we come out ahead? And I think the way you're going to do that is most likely going to be ending on third point. Full holding on first and second, obviously that's great. Obviously that delivers you the win, but it's very, very hard to do, I think, in this current meta where, you know, 1 or 2 Widow picks or Tracer picks, those are probably going to blow out your defense, and retaking doesn't feel too possible. But controlling the map at the very end of third point, I think that's where defense has the biggest advantage on this map. That's where they're most likely to succeed. So from the Spark's perspective down the defense, it's all about whittling down the time bank, getting a couple fight wins on each point A and point B, and hopefully by the time Charge get to point C, their time is so limited that they're forced to move a little bit more quickly than they'd like to. And, you know, maybe they follow the same way the Spark did, attacking that third point.
So one thing you kind of brought up that we've been referencing midcast, but, you know, as we're in a pause, it's a good chance to go back and sort of reflect why this is happening, is that first pickoffs in Overwatch have always been impactful, right? But when you look at this meta in particular, you see a first pickoff and the entire flow of battle really changes, right? Where it feels like your Tracer suddenly becomes way more deadly. Your Widow just becomes insane in what they can do. Why is losing just 1 DPS, for example, such a huge deal in changing the flow of the fight?
I think the power of the DPS in this current composition is just that they're so incredibly different than one another, right? You've got this Widow hero who's going to sit, you know, in very long sight lines generally, maybe take jump shots, all about bursting down those squishy targets or you know, grinding away at tanks with those huge damage from headshots. And then you've got Tracer, a hero that wants to be incredibly mobile, forcing objectives, getting in the back line, delivering pulse bombs, maybe one clipping down supports. And what happens when you lose one of those elements is that your comp becomes very lopsided. Like, you're relying on the Tracer to be a hero that constantly takes the Harmony Orb, uses those heal values from Zenyatta to push out the flank, get space control for the team. And you're relying on, by a similar token, Widow to less than focusing on the heals, more about utilizing your tank pressure. So because your tanks control a certain sight line, then your Widow has a lot of pressure, puts out influence on the map. But when you lose one of those elements, either you don't have the Tracer on the flank, so the enemy Tracer is able to sweep in and push your Widow out, or once you lose your Widow, it's vice versa. Like, even if you have flank control, you don't have the threat on the enemy tanks or the enemy supports. They're able to just walk into sight lines with no fear. So when the 2 DPS are so diametrically opposed as they are in Widow Tracer comps, losing one ends up really hurting the other. So those DPS players winning the duels is very, very high impact.
I mean, kind of translating that just feels like there's an invisible aura of force that these heroes are radiating, and then once you lose it, your position and control just simply disappears.
I mean, it's invisible, but until Happy clicks your head, then it's visible. That's pretty... You see that in the kill feed.
Yeah, it's invisible until it happens, and Happy right now, still projecting that force. Eileen off on the right, Happy on the left. The dual approach coming in here from the Charge is Spark. Just look to play around line of sight, not give up any easy opportunities, and Godspeed is caught! Happy with the first pickoff, and the Spark already in a bit of trouble.
What a jump shot there from Happy. Nice work by Eileen, though. He gets pack control that forces the recall out of Architect. So now Eileen is going to start getting a little bit more control in this flank. We see the Tracers are fighting tooth and nail. They don't want to give up just yet. Even without Godspeed, Happy hasn't been able to capitalize into more picks or more damage yet. Although the Charge, they've turned this crucial corner. That's going to enable them to start hopefully moving forward on the map. But they are forced back, so the Spark, credit to them, surviving. But Happy delivers another just as Godspeed was coming back to the fight.
And it takes down QOQ, and Godspeed's not going to be out of the fire either. Bebe gets caught, and now the Spark a rough spot. Godspeed, though, able to turn the tide, takes down Happy. So the Spark still with an opportunity. Godspeed gets Shu! And this is where Godspeed shows up, but they have to worry about the objective. The Spark giving up some progress there, but now they have the opportunity to go back in, to whittle down the numbers of the Charge. and now Godspeed, nothing really in his way.
Yeah, they've got a ton of picks. It should be just enough, I think, to make this recontest successful, despite the map being so difficult to recontest on. So even though Happy opened that up, got Widow kill, and then eventually a later Sigma kill, I think it was just a little bit too split apart. Eileen did his best to finish off those frags, but he couldn't find Gushui until it was too late. So nice stabilization, and Godspeed comes right back into the action, takes the win in the duel, and finds another after that. And that's the power of Widowmaker, right? It's an explosive hero that the difference between, it's basically 100 to 0, right? You're going to either get completely destroyed or you're going to completely destroy. There's not much middle ground.
Yeah, I mean, that duel just influences so much, and I mean, the problem that the Charge have now is that they're almost relying on the Widow picks with how powerful the Spark are. Ult economy is looking very good. QOQ, though, eating a lot of damage going for the Flux. Just barely able to get away. Godspeed, though, gets Eileen, who's coming in off the flank. Very even fight between both teams. QOQ couldn't fully get away. 4-on-4. Flux coming in from Krong, and Happy finds Bebe as the Flux comes in. Chu, though, down the Architect, and this is something that Architect can still turn in the fight. Holding on to the Pulse Bomb. Krong, super low, taken down by Architect, and Architect proved to be the X factor.
What a massive difference maker Architect has been. Not only in that first fight did he keep things in contest despite losing his Widowmaker, but now he's just running rampant with kills in the back line. He's going to miss the Pulse Bomb. Nice jukes by Happy there. But Architect, I don't think he's too worried about that. 1 minute on the clock, and although I said it was pretty unlikely, Spark, they're sort of cruising towards a full hold right now. They got the infra side as well, so Happy's going to be pretty neutered in his ability to get aggressive.
Architect keeping the pressure up, and again for the Charge, now, again, they're just very, very reliant on Happy finding the early pickoff, and Godspeed could end that with one good shot. The Spark looking remarkably composed, and this is looking very tough for the Charge now.
They are on the Hammond, though, coming back fast so that QQ could be part of the fight, but he's not able to contribute as much as a Sigma would. But Architect, he keeps winning the duel. Somehow Architect finds a kill in the enemy Tracer with the help of the Discord Orb. QOQ does fall for his troubles, though, but did a nice job staying alive as long as he could.
Architect was looking to challenge Happy. Happy was ready for it. Still moving back in off the rewind. Happy not out of the danger zone just yet. Goes for the hook shot under heavy pressure, 27 HP, and Architect's going to finish it off. The Spark gaining in momentum. The Charge down their best weapon, and Chu just pops Transcendence Charge, recklessly moving in, looking for anything. They get something. QOQ out of the fight, and I look to the front line of the Charge. Eileen getting pretty low. Krong surviving. Architect, though, Pulse Bomb. Chara ends up falling. Eileen, though, still around. Things are going to have to Charge an S from Eileen. Happy back to the fight. Krong is down, and Architect just continues cleaning up. Eileen has been unable to deal with it, falls to Bebe, and the Spark roar in on Junkertown. They take the map. They're up 2-0.
Wow, what an incredible performance. First hold on Junkertown is just not something we see anymore as EP. It's a map that so many teams have just figured out as far as pushing goes. Happy had some good moments there winning duels, but Architect just came up massive in the Tracer duel. Not only was he winning the 1v1 multiple times over, but he's also managing to get picks, put pressure onto Happy, attack the backline, all in the same breath it felt. So that last fight was really indicative of that. He just lived so long, was a nuisance in the backline, picked off Happy, then went on to pulse bomb the tanks down and grind them out after the supports were lost. So overall, I think Architect really just took control of that map. Godspeed maybe having a little bit of trouble in the Widow duel, but he's even having bright spots of his own, so it's not like Architect has to do all of the work. And Spark are up 2-0 in the series. They could be closing this out quicker than I expected.
The Spark, they're up not just 2-0, but they take away a map that should have been a strong point for the Charge. The Charge, they're in danger. We're going to break it down a little bit more at the half.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile. And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Game break time presented by Cheez-It Grooves, and we got to the half, Jake, I think a little bit earlier than any of us expected, especially with the charge on the attack where you might have a bunch of mechanical skill, but they had trouble putting it all together against a very well-composed Spark team.
Yeah, and the Spark were just incredibly dominant. It felt like when they had an opening, they immediately pounced on it and got a ton of value in terms of objective pressure and map control. Whereas for the Charge, despite having some openers here and there, they weren't able to actually convert those into point captures, into map wins. So as they sit down 0-2 at the series, the question is, are they going to have to reevaluate the way they're approaching this series? They were able to beat Seoul in this mirror match, but it seems that Spark, and largely off the back of an incredible Tracer performance by Architect, is actually ahead.
And you know what? That brings us into crunch time, also presented by Cheez-It Grooves. And Jake, we were talking about it in the break, but sometimes for Widow, it's not the quantity of kills, it's the quality, especially when we look at Godsby.
Yeah, think about that opener Godsby got, whereas compared to Charge's attack, where despite having some openers, they're never closing it out, with just one Godsby pick onto the enemy Tracer, as soon as Eileen fell, Architect just dashes right into the backline on their first point push, and the rest of the team just immediately floods out of the choke. That forces Happy into an awkward sightline where he's playing right next to his tanks, where he's not able to exhibit as much map control or pressure as he normally would like to. And then Architect just slowly pincers in behind while the rest of the team attacks from the front. And it's just a sandwich that ends up in a quick team kill, an almost instant capture on point A. So that was our crunch time presented by Cheez-It Grooves, where the Spark take one pick and just immediately ran with it. It's a sign of a real top team in the Overwatch League.
Also just sort of actual crunching between both sides. But overall, I mean, if you're a Charge fan looking at this, what do you hang your hat on here? Because the long-range battle is something we thought the Charge would take, and even with early pickoffs, the Spark just looked too good teamwork-wise at dealing with it. I mean, where's the hope as we look at Map 3?
It has to be, in my mind, Eileen, whereas Architect has been having just a disgusting series on Tracer, coming up absolutely massive. He had great performances across all the heroes he played, but it seems that Tracer was really his final form waiting to be unlocked, as he was, I think, the real reason that Spark were so dominant on Junkertown. I mean, Godsby did a great job holding his own against Happy. We talked about that as a real key to victory for the Spark, but Architect was the one, I think, who really took control, who really got a ton of advantages for his team and pressed those advantages.
So the Spark, they are looking fantastic. The Charge searching for answers. Do they have anything left in the tank? We're going to find out as we come back from the half.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Cheez-It Grooves. Deep flavor, deep crunch. It's a mind crunch. The Overwatch League is brought to you by HyperX. Unleash your style, unleash your fury with HyperX Fury Memory. And by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
We're in the middle of the battle of electricity right now, and it's a Charge that are looking drained against a completely ready Spark team. ZP here with Jake. And Jake, the Charge, they've played their best map, in a sense, for this meta. It didn't work out, and now they just have to figure out a way to turn things around as we head into King's Row.
Yeah, King's Row gonna hopefully change the script a lot. We're expected to see, I think, very different heroes. Wouldn't expect to see too much Widowmaker on this map. But honestly, that is normally something I would say counts towards the Sparks' favor. And instead of the fact that they're up 2-0 in the series already means that this could be the place that they close it out. For the Charge to reverse sweep, it has to start here. They have to get, at the very least, a draw in King's Row. But ideally a win. I mean, you don't want to be staring down the barrel of still a 2-0 map differential even after this map. So for the Charge, now is the test of how they can perform on a very different composition than we've seen much from them recently.
Yeah, because you go into King's Row, it's just not a map that usually could get away with running a whole lot of Widow on, and I think it might be for the best because, you know, you take a look at how the Spark have been playing, especially on the last map, is that it almost feels like the Spark are going at this with the idea of, well, we're going to play contained in such a way that we're not going to let Happy beat us. It's going to be more on Eileen, and you talk about the Tracer v Tracer setup, and Architect's been having a much better game thus far.
Yeah, you know, I'm curious to see whether much of that same meta is in effect here on King's Row. I think Tracer and Widow are both a lot weaker here. We might still see the Orisa Sigma, although I think even a Rein Sigma or potentially a Rein Zarya, probably not. Rein Sigma, a little too good right now. But that Reinhardt in general is a play that so far only really the Spark have employed, and they only in one round, on Ilios. So this is a bit of an X factor. Could be a major shakeup, which despite not having the Widow, maybe Happy's strong suit, I think overall a shakeup is exactly what the Charge need at this point in the series.
Yeah, I mean, especially if Junkertown doesn't go their way, it's sort of, okay, let's find a different way for the rest of the series, something that maybe they can bring forward if they take down King's Row, look at map 4, what to actually play, but right now, it's definitely tough for the Charge, especially because you think about momentum within the series, right, where map 1 was very close. I don't think as a team you're beating yourself up losing map 1 like that, but if you're the Charge, how do you pick yourself up after what happened on Junkertown?
Yeah, that one is going to be more of a bitter pill to swallow, especially if you had a nice defense, set up a win condition there. Falling on first point is really rough on Junkertown. That's not something that really happens that much anymore. We see almost every team make it at least to second point. That's where the defenders generally start to have a chance to make holds. But the fact that you're able to make a hold happen on first is really, frankly, just painful for the Charge. This is going to be a test of their mental fortitude, though. Do they have the chutzpah to really pick themselves up after that tough loss and just focus on being confident, staying focused on the game plan? They certainly have game plans throughout the series for every map, so if you could just move beyond Junkertown mentally, that's the first step to getting a win here on King's Row.
I mean, the Charge, you take a look at yesterday, too. They're a gutsy team. Like, they're not really a team I look at where I go, ooh, they've lost the first 2 maps. Well, they're checked out. It's over. I mean, I definitely think they're a team that can look at this sort of situation and bring it back. I just think the troubling part here is that when they've been able to play to their strengths, it hasn't really been good enough thus far. But now, take a look at the 2 teams as they head out. The defense taking shape here for the Charge, and I'm not too surprised to see the Tracer coming out. And what do you think about the Ashe for this first point defense?
I think the Ashe is a much better choice than Widow here. The range is just close enough where Widow isn't really getting that full value with the extended sight line. And a hero like Ashe can get just a ton of damage out, pressuring the shields a lot harder than Widow can. So, especially if the enemy team elects to run a Rein, that's much more realistic on King's Row, where you want a DPS that's really going to pressure shields. And neither Widow nor Tracer really fills that role. Ashe, a great middle ground to get that job done.
Still lets Happy also be in his comfort zone of single-shot hit-scan heroes. The Charge, poking fire coming out here as a Spark set up. Godsby swapping off to Symmetra after an early teleporter onto an Ashe himself, so it is going to be Ashe v Ashe.
A full mirror match, so I would say once again the pressure is going to be on these Tracers, although Ashe, a hero that can do a lot more, I think, to pressure the enemy Tracer with that one-shot headshot, being a little bit more realistic than a Widowmaker accomplishing the same goal. Of course, it's always possible. Now's the time, though, I think, for Eileen in particular to come alive.
The Spark right now not being too crazy on the dive in. Both teams looking for good poke, but Krong in danger, immediately taken down. The Immortality Field not enough to save. And the Spark just come rushing in. And even with Eileen getting Architect, that's not going to be nearly enough. The Spark have set up on a very good start.
The Spark are playing this composition in such an unconventional way. That fearless aggression for Bebe. He dropped down to 20 health while diving an enemy Orisa on Zenyatta. That's just not a sense I was expecting to say this evening as we got into this mirror match. Usually we see a much more passive shield spamming base composition, but Spark, they just sense weakness and immediately collapse on it. So despite the fact that Happy puts out a ton of damage in that fight, it's all for nothing. They're not securing the kills.
Ooh, Godspeed doesn't know the danger he's in. Tracer setting up in the corner. Eileen, though, gonna be taken down to task here. His Architect was there for the support, and Eileen can't get away.
Yeah, it's nice work by Godspeed and Architect going together. Even though they don't see Eileen coming, Architect has the full HP and resources to chase down that frag. And Matrix is committed by Chara, but it's not enough here. Beautiful kinetic grasp there by QOQ. Keeps this whole team alive and gets the picks as well. So in total control here are the Spark. They committed their own amplification Matrix, but now that the payload's rolling through second point, this next fight is going to be really, really critical for the Charge to reverse their fortunes. This is where all the ultimates are in play. The usage of those ultimates is going to pretty much define the way the fight goes. But as the team that is fundamentally the defenders, I think the Spark have a big edge here. It's going to be much easier for Gushue to get a good supercharger.
This is so tough for the Charge. I mean, this is not a fight that looks good at all on entry. They don't have the X factor of Widow getting an early pickoff. Happy just has to use Bob to get to position, and Bob probably not happy about it. No pun intended, immediately falling. Gushue dropping the supercharger. The Spark with an enormous poke advantage from this position, even with the Charge having a supercharger of their own. Bob down. Oh, Architect got to the back. The Pulse Bomb. It's more than enough. The Spark getting point B. 5 minutes and 20 seconds, Jake. This is a speed run.
Yeah, the Spark are looking incredibly dominant, even with the Ash changing things up a little bit. It doesn't seem to have changed the script of this match, as Spark are still in total control. Great usage of the ultimates there. Krong, I don't think he's even built up his first gravitic flux of the map, so he's in a really rough spot as we get to see the replay here. How did Architect manage to find that pulse bomb? You see the drone came out so early there, and because it comes out that early, it's not available to defend his teammates.
Godspeed is all taken down. Also, I think there's some action going on as we're mid-replay. The Charge getting forced back. The Spark still in hot pursuit. Both support ultimates up. And the Charge have to find anything to turn the tide here. A headshot from May would be great, but Eileen already almost down. Wrong though. Able to find QOQ. It's exactly what the Doctor orders. Happy finds Architect. Happy with one more. And even with the Spark getting two, using the Transcendence here, the Charge have a foothold to start pushing this back.
Yeah, this should be a moment where they're able to hold, and with Eileen switching over to the Mei, I actually really like that decision from him. It gives him a lot more staying power and an ultimate that contributes a lot more directly to the team fight than a Pulse Bomb, where if you can't force the Immortality Field, the Pulse Bomb is not all that impactful, I think, in this meta. However, you know, just as I say, that last fight, Drone was forced, Pulse Bomb was massive, so you know, we can't write off Architect just yet on the Tracer, but we'll see if Eileen can do a bit better on this Mei.
Krong dropping the flux pretty early, and Eileen gets caught. Godspeed on the punish. And this means Architect's gonna have so much more room. The Spark with 2 early opening pickups. QOQ drops the flux, gets another 2 of his own. And the Spark, relentless. Look at the time, Jake, 3 minutes and 35 seconds. This was fast.
Yeah, the idea was good, I think, from Eileen on the Mei, but it just didn't work out there. It got picked off early, which is not something you can allow to happen on Mei, a hero that thrives on being so difficult to pick off first. You've got the Ice Block, that self-protection ability, usually can get you out of trouble, buy your team time to get there and save you, but in this case, doesn't come off in time, so Godspeed now really coming into his own. Architect had good moments that series, but I think that was mostly Godspeed having big dynamite and even bigger headshots.
Yeah, also, I mean, I feel like we haven't talked about QOQ quite enough, where he's just been effective the entire series. And especially anytime there's a close-up battle, the Spark just seemed to dominate. And part of it is that QOQ picks the right positions, weaves in and out of line of sight super effectively, and it's something that's been so effective for the Spark, and a big reason why they seemingly just have such an edge in any fight that takes place in close quarters.
Yeah, QOQ in that replay just displayed such a crucial technique that all you Sigma players at home should be taking careful note of. When he commits that gravitic flux, you know, the risk is that you could get stunned and you'll lose that ability. You lose the control that the ult offers. So the worst thing that can happen is letting yourself get stunned. So I've seen QOQ do this a few times so far in the series where the moment he casts the ultimate, he immediately flies out of line of sight, flies into corners, hiding on low ground. It doesn't really matter to him. As long as he breaks LOS, so there's no chance of the enemy hitting him with a stun, he's happy. It means that he's getting that ult off super consistently. It's an area where a lot of Sigmas mess up, but QOQ does not.
So the Charge, what's in front of them is so difficult, Jake, where not only do they need to finish the map, but they have to do it with at least about a minute and a half left in the time bank, or it's just going to be too far gone.
He needs some amount of time. You could work with less, right? It is Kings Row. It is possible to get those crazy overtime pushes with just a minute on the clock. So it's not over, but they do need to cap with extra time. It would be so rough to even get an OT finish here or just be staring down the barrel of a draw as your best option. And even that feels pretty unrealistic with how great the Spark were on their own offense.
Well, Spark a little bit discombobulated early on. The Immortality Field forced out early. The Charge, though, they can't commit too much. Rio cannot fall early. That would likely be it. QOQ, though, in danger. Shu on the punish. Happy, though. Caught by Architect. Eileen, pulse bomb out. 5-on-5. Gushui, nowhere to go. Eileen getting a tremendous value in the melee.
Yeah, I feel like Eileen just sat in that corner for 3 or 4 full clips, so getting a ton of value off his Tracer. That's what we talked about, that Eileen had to step up, but right there he was getting so much value. I kind of wish Architect had found him and put some counter pressure on. But Happy's Widow just proves to be a little bit too much of a threat despite not doing a ton of damage there. The fact that Spark are playing so carefully around the Widow, giving him so much respect, means that the rest of the team has a lot of room to work with.
So the problem, I think, for the Charge, and they've just identified it here, is that you can't really stand Widow for point B. You can bring it back on point C, but for here, Happy, going to go over to the Hangzhou. We're still a very good Hangzhou, but it is a different sort of power.
Yeah, definitely. It gives a little more shield break potential, a little bit less in the long-range category, but as you said, it's a street phase. It's just a really terrible place to play Widow in most cases. Happy already finds an opening, though, so this is exactly what the Charge needed to do to keep this map in contention. So far, they've passed every test the Spark has pushed before them.
You know, I kind of like Happy here in the Hangzhou in the sense that Hangzhou's something Tracer has to respect a lot more than a Widowmaker, and with Architect usually just being such a terror in the back, I kind of feel like Happy in the Hangzhou gives the Charge a little bit more space to work with.
Yeah, not only that, but he still applies the same sort of pressure at a potential pick as a hero like Ashe does. You can still hit those one-shot headshots at long range. Although Spark, though, this is the moment where stabilizing would be especially value here. They do have the first supercharger, which could prove pretty significant.
Architect goes for the Pulse Bomb, gets nothing. Immortality Field out here from the Spark. The Charge solidifying their position here on the attack. It's up to the Spark to make a move. Supercharger about to be fading. Happy laying in the arrows, hoping for something to manifest. Architect getting low, and Godspeed gets caught. Happy's arrows strike true. Run, though, out of the fight, 5-on-5. QOQ looking for the flux, drops it on down. The Charge, though, very healthy. Rio, though, needs to get away. Rio just got bursted, just barely gets away. The Dragon eats Bebe. The Charge, a good disengage, re-engage, and the Spark, they're going to lose point B.
Yeah, it's a beautiful back off and refight, but the Amp Matrix is out, though. They're still fighting. IDK finds Shu. Architect, this duel in the backline is so critical. He does take down his counterpart, but it looks like it's only him and Bob left trying to hold down the point desperately.
The Spark delaying this for way longer than expected, but the fight too far gone. No miracles that time around, and the Charge, I mean, they're countering speedrun for speedrun. It's a little bit slower, Jake, but not by much.
Yeah, that Dragon Strike that ate up Bebe was so critical. Getting that Zenyatta meant no Discord Orb, so your tanks just become so much harder to burn through. That Discord is normally a really crucial piece of the puzzle. Godspeed going to switch back over to the Widow, which should put a bit of threat on the Hangzhou, but this is a sort of range where Hangzhou can definitely compete.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great for Happy. It's going to tempt him to go back to the Widow, but I like the effect the Hangzhou's had on the game so far. But, okay, as I said, that Architect uses Pulse Bomb, forces out the Immortality Field. Still a threat, but you look at how far back Architect has to play compared to before. He's giving the Hangzhou a good deal of respect.
Yeah, well, there's not much you can do with the Hangzhou on high ground, but they're partners up with Bebe to get a kill, and QOQ finds a second. This should be cleanup for the Spark, so finally they're starting to get a foothold on this defense. This is the first fight they've won on defense. Not going to be the end of the world for Charge, as they've got a ton of time bank to work with, but now Godspeed has the opportunity to clear out the map, drop a Venom Mine wherever he wants it, and set up on the angles that he prefers. So third point, Widowmaker actually pretty dominant on Kings Row.
He's going to see what the Charge I'm doing here. It looks like Happy, if he was considering swapping, is still going to stay for the Dragon Strike. And do you think that's the right call? Is Dragon Strike that powerful?
It is a pretty great map for the Dragon Strike, a lot of enclosed corridors, but I love the way Spark is taking a ton of map control. QOQ in an off angle, he's going to be really difficult to evict from that position, and meanwhile, he's just constantly spamming, quickly charging up that ultimate. Although Eileen is contesting him, that could be a bit scary if QOQ gets caught by that freezing beam.
QOQ just needs to stay healthier. You got the flux up, get to a good area where you can break line of sight. But QQ's under a lot of pressure. Discord on him, a lot of poke damage. QQ at death's door. His grasp healing him back up just a bit. Shu ends up falling, and the Spark barely stay alive there with the pressure on QQ, but it works out. The Charge, they kind of overcommitted for it.
It is a bit risky for QOQ to play that position, but that's the amount of value that he generates. Because Krong and Eileen go together to push him out, they do succeed in sending QOQ back, but because they don't get the pick, Architect there overextend. He thought he could finish off Krong. Krong was so low. That pick's going to be critical, but we'll see if QQ's off angle is sustainable now that he's down a player. I would expect him to just be fully retreating in this position.
Yeah, one more thing in this situation, but oh, the flux! A lot of people caught in that flux. I'm not sure the fall through is going to be there, though. I mean, down Architect, the Spark still have to be very careful. They back out. The Dragon pretty much forces their hand. So the Charge are going to get some positioning here, but the Spark still at full strength. They catch Eileen! With Eileen out of the fight, the Spark now have a lot more they can do.
Although Architect has got another kill. Transcendence does come out from Shu, but it's mostly just a delaying of the inevitable here. QQ is going to be picked up, but he's absolutely fine. He's not worried about this flux whatsoever. And that's another reset here for the Charge. Going to be pretty painful for him.
And now for the Charge, you're really worried about the time here, Jake, because remember, they can't just finish in overtime. That's not good enough. They need to finish with at least a little bit of time on the clock to get an overtime round and hope to get the crazy Kings Row push. And, I mean, that kind of means, Jake, this is their last effective good push.
Yeah, you know, you do have the Blizzard for Eileen, but what I'm really worried about is the lack of follow-up ultimates, on top of the fact that it's still a two-fight scenario here for the Charge. So even if the Blizzard gives them a solid team wipe, that won't necessarily end the map.
Yeah, the Charge, they have to be swift here. They have to be thinking the series is on the line. They need to go in. Architect forces out the Immortality Field again. Another pressuring Pulse Bomb. And if the Charge don't hurry here, Jake, even if they don't lose another fight, they're going to lose the map.
Yeah, the time is so low. They're in that position where soon it's just going to be a draw. Is that the only thing they can possibly achieve, which is a really just a mentally rough spot to be, even if it's not the end of the world in terms of the series. Just that stress and pressure is really hard to deal with. Although a nice opening, though, Amplification Matrix buffs up Shu, and he's able to get that first pick off. Happy finds another. Eileen gets two more, so a very clean push. That's exactly what they need to potentially close out this map. 40 seconds on the bank, so a finish with extra time still possible here.
Godspeed goes down. That's a stagger the Charge need. 30 seconds left remaining. If you're the Charge, you need a quick, indecisive finish. If you're the Spark, delay, and delay some more. What's it going to be? QQ goes for the flux, gets caught in the corner. The Charge keeping up immense pressure. And the Spark, you're not going to win the fight, but you can delay. How long can you do it? Everyone is falling. And the Spark, they let the Charge stay in the map.
Yeah, they managed to get it done there. The Blizzard and the Amplification Matrix were just enough to get it done in those final seconds with a little bit of extra time. So this map still in contention, still winnable for the Charge, although it's a massive time bank advantage for the Spark. That can't be understated.
Yeah, I mean, the Spark time bank, it's a good one. 4 minutes and 20 seconds left. That's more time than you normally have to take first. So the Charge, they're going to be on the attack first here, Jake. Not only do they need a tremendous attack, but looking on the other side, I mean, the Spark, they're going to have plenty of opportunities to get their own snowball rolling.
The key here for the Charge is getting one of those ridiculous overtime pushes. We know they're possible on a map like Kings Row. If you can get that first point capped, one of the unique things about Overwatch is that even though you have a limited time bank, if you're fighting in the overtime, the defenders have very, very long respawns, so they'll actually get way fewer opportunities to contest the cart than you normally would in a round with normal time banks. So if the Charge can get a nice snowball rolling, a quick fight win into pushing that cart very, very quickly, getting fight wins in the overtime, then they will be able to make an absolute ton of progress here. That'll be very, very significant for them, but it all starts on point A. If they get shut out here, then it feels like it's just Spark's series to close out.
Yeah, and I mean, the first attack the Charge had wasn't really bad, so I mean, the idea that they could get in 1 minute, something I actually think is more likely than not. But we'll see how the Spark respond. This is still on a knife's edge, and with how explosive Architect has been, the Charge have to be very pristine.
Yeah, we'll see if Happy's able to continue working his magic on this Hangzhou. I like the off angle from QOQ and Godsby. It's going to be a big threat should the Charge try and move in aggressively. This time, no Widowmaker, though, for Happy. That's what he played last time on the first point attack. So we'll see if this Hangzhou allows us to put out the same amount of fear into the hearts of the Spark.
I think the Charge had the right idea at points, just punishing QQ and Architect getting very low, can't get away from Eileen. Eileen there on the chase down, and that's a big deal for keeping the Charge alive. Happy finds Bebe, and the Spark folding on point A. Jake, this is how crazy overtime pushes are born.
It is, although still the fact that these players are dying and it's not OT yet is actually pretty good for the Spark. They are going to get their respawns on the normal clock, so they won't have that really extended death timer just yet. So this next fight's still going to be very much in contention. That fight went actually so quick that nobody even has ultimates ready. So it's very possible here for the Spark to win the next fight and still get a good defense. But if the Charge win this upcoming fight, this is the point where you give yourself that ridiculous progress that overtime makes possible here in the OT round on King's Row.
Could have said better myself. This next fight is really what determines whether or not the Spark's time bank even matters for this map. If they can stop it here, they still have a huge edge. If they get wiped, the Charge are very much back in it.
Yeah, and I'm worried now for the Spark because Char is going to be the first one to that amp matrix, and we've seen how critical that ultimate is in a comp that can put out so much damage. Eileen once again beats Architect in the 1v1.
Eileen coming alive when the Charge need it most. Eileen takes down Guangzhou after taking down Architect, and the Charge right back in it. And take a look at the respawn timers here, Jake. The Spark are going to be waiting a very long time to get back in.
Godsby just staying behind, I think wisely valuing his life. Gonna go grab a mega pack and come in from the flank, but is it gonna be enough? Look, QOQ, IDK, they just respawned. The card is almost gonna be through second point. I think Spark might get an uncontested cap here, especially with Godsby coming back from such an awkward angle.
Yeah, Godsby taking the time to read, as it turns out, going, why is my entire team gone? Well, I'm gonna make the most of it. The Bob, ready to move in at any point. They're gonna use the Bob to delay. They want to stop it here at point B. They get the capture. It doesn't matter too much in overtime, but the spawns do matter if the Spark don't take it clearly.
Yeah, that Bob did not last long at all. Amp Matrix does come out, but a nice Dragon makes it awkward to use. This Flux, though, it should be enough. QOQ picks up everyone off the cart, and that's the end of the OT. That's the power of overtime. I mean, that fight was over, though. Architect with a triple kill pulse bomb. Doesn't really make that much of a difference in the end.
Yeah, I think before chat goes wild and starts spamming letter number, but please just look at the aftermath there. Even if they were still on the payload, they weren't for long.
Yeah, but that's the type of push that you can win with on the side of the Charge. That's that 1 minute sort of crazy overtime push that we talked about. Props to the Spark, though, retaining their composure and managing to hold on there in that crucial fight at on the start of third point. That's really the place where the difference is made, as it were. Here we see Happy, how he really opened it up on the Hangzhou. Coming in from this nice off angle right as the enemy tanks retreat around the corner. Great timing by Happy. He's so great at using his team's pressure to get maximum value.
The thing about that, though, a lot of that was cleanup, where the true opening piece was coming in from Eileen, and it kind of plays into something we brought up to start the map, right? Where this had to be a map where we saw more of Eileen relative to Architect, because that was really in the beginning part of the match. It was something where the Spark had a big edge, and when the Charge needed it most, Eileen delivered.
Yeah, this is what we talked about, where Architect was that carry player, kind of consistently coming out on top in the last couple maps when he's playing the Tracer duel. But this time it wasn't the case. Here we can see a replay how this round actually ended here. I think the key factor is that the Immortality field came out so early. So the Flux picks everybody up, and then look at this. Architect's going to put his Pulse Bomb right on the floor, and they're dropped right on top of it.
That was such a well-executed play, top to bottom. But now, the Spark, I mean, look, they held off the tide there, but they have quite a ways to go. They have decent time bank to do it. We'll see how it pans out. Krong already in a really rough shape.
Yeah, you'd love to get this ball rolling really quick as they make a fast push through the hotel, and they're doing exactly that. It seems like defending this point is impossible so far. Both teams snowballing through first as Godsby does break the Immortality field. Nice flank coming in around the back from Krong. We'll see if they're able to get actual kills out of this. They've got to do more than just annoy the tanks, but Guangzhou doing such a great job frontlining for his team, keeping the pressure off of Godsby.
I like the pressure the Charge applied there after losing Happy. I think you have to go all in that situation when you're down 1 because it just gets progressively worse and worse, right? The problem is they weren't able to find the elimination. The Spark still maintained the momentum for a degree, but Happy coming back in. I don't think this is enough. I think the Charge have bled a lot, but okay, QQ somehow dies to Chara. There's a chance.
Chara has somehow stayed alive so long in the backline. Now Eileen's contesting point. Rio's back in the fight, and this is like a potential hold here for the Charge. Somehow they made it happen, but Architect does get that kill, so even if this hold is secured, there will be a momentary power play for the Spark as their spawners come in. Remember, that's so much closer here for the attackers on first point, and looks like another pick.
Yeah, Happy ends up falling. It's still really hard for the defense to re-solidify here, but this is where the Spark are just getting the reward from their larger time bank here, where if this had happened to the Charge, it was probably going to be GG, but the Spark, they use the time bank, 2 minutes and 40 seconds still remaining. Still have to get through second here, though, Jake.
Yeah, as the payload starts rolling, the question is, can they replicate the success that the Charge had off those initial pushes? And because they have a time bank, actually, the defenders are going to be respawning a lot quicker, so 2 fights on second point is virtually guaranteed. There won't be that, you know, 1 fight and then 1 sort of awkward recontest. The Charge will have ample time here to get the fights they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, the overtime push in a lot of ways, it's high risk, high reward, and the Charge definitely cashed in more on the reward end of the spectrum. We're going to have the Flux here from Krong, looking to defy the Spark. Immortality Field comes out, keeps everyone alive, and really good healing in here from the Spark, especially if QOQ is able to stay alive. So close to building a Flux of his own. The heals were in, and so is the Flux. QOQ, the counter Flux, the Charge, having the transcend in response. Bob out here from Happy. Godspeed, a Bob about to be out for the Spark. Back and forth as this fight so far, and Architect finally breaks it open.
That's a crucial pickoff. Architect finds a second. We'll see if he's able to continuously deliver more. Seems like all the threats are down, but Eileen manages to instantly burn him down. Chara on 1 HP. That kill couldn't have come in at a better time for Eileen.
The turnaround for the Charge, fantastic. Out of both Eileen and Happy, just when Architect was starting to make headway, it's denied. Now the Spark down to their final minute and 15 as the Charge fight for their very survival here in the series.
Once again, though, the late picks from the last fight might be just what the Spark need. They are going to make some progress and potentially get the cart to a final fight scenario. Those late picks mean that they will have that power play that gets them around the next corner. Both teams with a supercharger to work with, although Rio doesn't quite have his ready just yet. Looks like he is getting the spam to get that ability online. Such a crucial one in this mirror match where breaking shields so critical to delivering any sort of value.
Supercharger used on both sides is testament to that. Mortality Field a little bit earlier for the Spark. Godspeed losing his Bob early as Krong went around the side, still caught Godspeed, and the Charge are pushing the Spark back once again.
Happy on this Ashe, delivering time and time again. Nice quick little triple kill for him there. Quick and clean, gets it done, and ooh, this is where the Spark are in real trouble. The map now feels almost out of reach. Ultimate disadvantage. Defender's position is advantage here. Just, there's not really much going for the offense. Someone's going to have to make a heroic play.
Architect has the pulse bomb up, and the Spark, if they take this fight, the overtime push goes the other way, and they don't have to go far. The Spark still have a really big opportunity here, but you gotta look towards the Tracer. Happy opens up with the Bob. Gushui under tons of pressure. The Immortality Field needed immediately, and now, where is Architect? He's coming on in, looking for the opportunity, taking a long time. This is time that the rest of the Spark is just getting beaten up. And at some point, Architect's gonna have to go to the flank. QOQ opens up, the Flux throws him to the sky. IDK is down. Time is getting slow here for the Spark. And the Pulse Bomb only deals with the Immortality Field. QOQ though, able to find Shu. QOQ, he's doing it again. Close range combat. But is it gonna be enough? Happy, still a threat on the side.
Happy played that huge off angle, but it's really only Architect fighting now. He's just trying to desperately hang onto the cart, but Happy's so low. IDK's back on the Lucio, and it's Lucio and Tracer. Could be just the heroes that this team needs to clean up. They're using the card heals to maximum effect here. And the Spark, it seems like they're doing it. Such a desperate scenario, 2-on-2. Tracer Lucio on Tracer Lucio. This is for the game here, I think, as Spark are coming out on top, all fast heroes to get the recontest, and they somehow do it. Charge are going to have an opportunity, but it's so small.
I can't believe he got Happy there. Came back in on a whim and a prayer. The Spark close to finishing out the entire series. The Charge were so close to forcing yet another map. And IDK, late swap here onto the Ana. Bob out early here from Happy. The Charge, they can still defend this. but can they get the first pick off? Eileen strikes, takes down Godsby, the soldier out of the fight. Architect deals more time field, but it's all
Happy's cleaning
Happy.
up.
Happy going wild, the bob into the back. The cleanup is there, and the late surge from the Spark, it's not enough. Going to map 4.
Yeah, they managed to stay alive. It's beautiful work by them to close it out there after the Spark. That was a pretty legendary comeback in that second of the penultimate fight, rather. Pretty impressive stuff that they're able to keep their hopes alive at closing out the series there. But Charge, they are going to get a map win. They are going to be starting on their way to evening up this series. And we talked about this map being a shakeup. It brought out the Ashe, and Happy seemed even more dominant. I didn't think that was possible, but he did seem more dominant than usual on that Ashe matchup.
Yeah, I think the Charge found new footing, and it makes me wonder, are they going to go back to Widow for the next fight? I mean, matchup-wise against the Spark, they've been better off running what they're running on King's Row. But either way, the Charge, they stay alive. They still have far to go here. We'll be back soon.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile. And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Charge had their backs against the wall, but King's Row was a thriller, one they came out on in the end. Up one map for themselves to the 2 of the Spark, and still a long way to go as they head into Hanamura.
Yeah, Hanamura is the place where Charge, they need to even up the series here, give themselves the option to get that reverse sweep, and Control was incredibly close. Despite, the Spark ultimately taking it in the end, it felt that it really came down to the specifics of the map of Elio. So as we get into our final control, that maybe potentially the decider, I think the Charge have a great chance of flipping the script there, taking it back, but they will have to make it through Hanamura for that to even be a possibility.
Yeah, and take a look at the two teams here from what you've seen here today, the strengths of both. How do you feel like Hanamura could play out here?
To be honest, I think this is a map where Widowmaker is going to come back into favor. There are these long sidelines, first point and second point, where a Widow can be more dominant than an Ashe. So I would expect to see, especially Happy, go to that hero. But we have seen him also be effective on the Hangzhou and the Ashe. So, it's possible they'll play something different. But honestly, I'd expect to see more Widow duels, which, theoretically in the past I would have said would favor Happy. But Godsby has been coming into form in that Widow mirror.
Yeah, I think the thing is, too, is it's not necessarily Godsby is, taking down Happy a ton, but Happy has had trouble hunting down Godsby, and, as this is going on, I feel like the Spark have been playing better when neither Widow is getting picks, right? It almost feels like, when I look at the Charge, if they're running Widow, if they don't get a pick, it just doesn't work out well, whereas the Spark are totally fine even if they don't get the early pickoffs with the Widow because they've just been playing better. In particular, I think there's been a difference when you look at the Sigma play. I think QOQ has been incredible in close range, and there's still been a bit of a difference in Tracer play, even though Eileen has had some very strong moments over the course of the series.
Love the choice to pick the Mei here for the Spark. I think the Mei is just so impactful on Hanamura. It's a little bit ridiculous, actually, on this map. You've got the first point choke completely blockable with the Mei wall, and it's only even worse on second point for the attackers. That Mei wall, you can even build it laterally in the choke, so it's almost impossible for the attackers to break a pillar because they'll need to break all 5 to be able to get through. So I love this decision from the Spark. Godsby on the McCree, a little bit surprising. I think a lot of teams would favor an Ashe or a Widow in this situation. We'll see what he's able to get done with the power of that Fan the Hammer right-click ability.
I mean, I think you take a look at this for the Spark and you go, okay, we just don't want to play the sightline game. And guess what? Neither do the Charge from the looks of it. We've gone back in time a bit here, Jake, because that is Tracer Genji Dive.
Maybe this is what they're feeling, why they don't want to play the Ashe, why they picked the McCree. It ends up being a pretty good choice here. Hard Dive is going to come in almost instantly here, diving into the backline. Is happy, but Architect does find the kill onto Rio.
I mean, the problem is if you don't get the early elimination, it all falls apart very quickly. Winston and Hammond here, I mean, it's a quick moment of disruption, but if you don't take down the other DPS, they're both going to fall quickly, and it's exactly what happens.
Yeah, the power of this Mei is that you can just freeze up the Winston once he jumps in, and there's no escape. That cooldown just won't be available until the freeze is through, and there's no way you're surviving a full freeze against the amount of damage that Spark can put out, especially in their support line. But look at this 3-3 split. You've got a crazy little backline flank here. Chara with both of his DPS setting up to come in from behind. That could be sort of the steroid that this flank needs.
Well, they're looking for it. Krong is super low. Got hit with the Discord Orb, and the Focus Fire was there. So the Charge probably going to wait a little bit for Krong to resupply. Meanwhile, the Spark just looking to stick together and not give the Charge any crazy opportunities. The Charge now looking to move in. This time it's Rio under heavy Focus Fire. Rio super low. The Immortality Field keeping Spark alive. They all got low, but now healed up. Godsby finds Eileen, and the window of opportunity starting to close here for the Charge.
That AM Matrix so deadly, and a headshot from McCree, more than enough to burn down a Tracer. Charge resetting once again. Nanoboost is going to come in onto the Winston. Happy does find the kill into Godsby, so despite not getting the Nano Blade, it seems like this dive is starting to work out here for the offense.
Well, the defense still in it, though. Chara ends up following the Spark, buying some time, and QOQ continuing to be a threat under pressure. They dealt the honor, but oh, there's Krong knocking Bebe off. And the Charge, that's going to be enough. Krong coming in big.
Yeah, nice work there by the tanks of the Guangzhou Charge to open that one up. Despite losing Eileen, they weren't discouraged because Spark, they had themselves in a pretty awkward position on that high ground of point where, yes, they're still able to contest point, but you don't have very much map control from that position, and that enables Rio and Krong to just land right on the top of their heads. Now Happy, though, in a bit of a weird spot. Blade with no nano can be a little bit hard to use this.
You read my mind. That was going to be my question, is that do you use the Blade without the nano?
I honestly think you just hold it. Just wait for Rio and Krong to take a lot of damage and farm up a nano. Maybe go for a fight. But I would love to see Happy just hold on to the Blade. Try to force the trance maybe if you can. But Spark, they've set themselves up incredibly well in terms of economy in this second point. They have all the ultimates they can be hoping for.
I think he just wants to force a Transcendence. That's why he goes for it. Eileen gets a Pulse Bomb on the Godsby. However, they lose Krong, and Happy spends most of the Blade walking around after the Transcendence is forced. The Charge, they take down QOQ. This is still winnable. Happy looking for the supercharger, but okay, the Flash Shoe, the winnability just went into the toilet, but they did force the Spark to use some key resources.
Yeah, Transcendence came out. Ooh, that's a nice shutdown from Bebe. But Happy was able to recharge quite a bit of his Blade there. He's almost coming up pretty much even here with Bebe, though, and that's going to be the key race, I think, when it comes to the crucial team fight. If Bebe gets that Transcendence online first, oh no, never mind. Charge is going to take a full swap here. I don't hate it. I think this is actually exactly the right decision. Dive is really difficult to execute here into a well-entrenched second point.
Jake.
Oh, baby.
Let's go.
Actually, this is one of the better spots for Junkrat in the entire game. This hallway, so effective to just spam it with the junk pipes. Especially if he plays on an off angle, he can just constantly be bouncing them down the corridor without exposing himself. And without a Widow on the side of the Charge, there's not so much to be worried about for this Junkrat.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing the Junkrat does really well, too, I mean, just locking down the left side, it makes the Charge have to worry about more rotations here because the spam can be overwhelming in this sort of situation, and the Charge, it's definitely giving them a little bit pause on how to move in.
Yeah, you know, I lean picked this May with the idea of isolating somebody, but how well is this May even going to work with the fact that Junkrat can just blow through those walls incredibly quickly? There, Eileen drops it, but immediately just puts his wall down after it comes out, so not really getting too much off of that.
Spark have enormous shield pressure right now, just continuing to force the charge back. The charge started out the upper right, but okay, Happy took down Mika. This can be the beginning of something great for the charge if they're able to rotate in quick enough, but the window is now, Jake, and they're not moving in fast.
Yeah, it's just so hard to do on Hanamura. One pick helps, but it doesn't really end the fight. Architect is going to have to back off the high ground. Going to commit this Rip Tire. This could be the difference maker. We'll see how he likes to commit. Oh, I love this wall ride. He's bringing in from the tire, coming in around the flank.
Again, the rating points already. Looking to head to the back. They know where it is. No, it's taken down. Had style, Jake, but no substance.
That's pretty intelligent, though, by Architect. He knows the Immortality field is out, so there's not really much point to driving in there and detonating it. It'll just feed support ult to the enemy players. But now we'll see what he's able to get done with limited resources. He's on the low ground. This is a pretty awkward spot for Junkrat.
Yeah, I don't think you like being there as Junkrat. You've been isolated out and then some. Dragon Strike coming in from afar. Godsby looking for a little bit more disruption as they move in. Eileen out of the fight early. The charge and a tougher spot. Happy builds up the Dragon Strike, takes down Architect, but the charge really can't afford to lose anyone else here. The attack's not going to be successful. Happy waiting around and just a little bit stymied here, Jake, at finding a good opportunity.
Bit of an awkward Dragon Strike there coming in from Happy. Not sure what he's going for there. He does find QOQ with his just bow and arrow, but Architect is back on the Tracer. Does take down Shu.
Oh.
Happy, though, going crazy. That's exactly the sort of explosive DPS pop-off that you need to close out a map like Hanamura.
Happy finds the way there at the last moment, drops down, catches 3. That's incredible. The timing and game sense after coming up short for a while on the attack is exactly how the charge are going to be taking point B here. 45 seconds left, the Spark looking to delay, but it's all too decisive.
Well, when Happy hits shots like that, that's how you cap in the point. 45 seconds left in the time bank. Not too much, but you're happy with that if you're the charge. I mean, Hanamura is a map where most teams fail to cap second point, so having extra time in the bank means at least you've guaranteed yourself an overtime round if the Spark have a blistering paced offense.
You know, I just realized we use the word happy a lot in games where Happy isn't playing, and sometimes it gets very redundant. And yet the same though, it's not as bad as when you have players name things like although or the, in which case it just gets very confusing.
Yeah, although might be the toughest name to use in context I've ever seen in the Overwatch League, but we'll soldier on through. Hopefully nobody names themselves through.
Well, let's not give people ideas where you'll just see an entire team rename just the troll casters. And I mean, on one level I'd respect it, and on the other level it'd be tough.
So interesting to me how these teams play very similar strategies, like when it switches to offense, defense, the fact that Spark is going to play basically the same comp that Charge did on the offense and vice versa on the defense. That seems that like this second week of Hero Pool has really allowed teams to get a lot more refined in terms of the strategies they're implementing.
Yeah, and I think that was the hope, right? And the reason why Hero Pools went to a 2-week system to go. You know, week 1, it's going to be a little bit more chaos. Week 2, refinement. And then week 3 and week 4, the gloves are off. Show us everything that you got, and maybe you'll learn something along the way in the Hero Pool era.
Yeah, Godsby, I'm guessing just going to drop a Sonic Arrow. A little bit awkward to play Hanzo Genji in this comp. Yeah, he is going to switch back to the Tracer once he Sonics off that gateway. We'll see if the dive is more successful the first time around here for the Spark. They'd love to have a fast-paced offense. This dive can be explosive on point B if you have big ultimate advantage.
Well, this is a difference, too. They're not up against McCree on the other side, and Shu just picks off Mika. All right, that's a good start to any defense there for the Charge, and you know, we'll see how things work out. But right now, they're giving up a little bit of room.
Yeah, I like the capture pressure applied by QOQ and Architect, just forcing the Charge to move back from that close choke point. Now Architect is sliding in behind onto Shu, forces that Immortality field, breaks it, and just finishes off Shu instantly. So Architect being just a deadly force on this Genji, Ninja in the backline.
Architect's Genji is a thing of beauty and a reason why he's been known for the hero for such a long time. And sees low HP targets in the back. Architect just looking at shops with, okay, as I say that, Sigma's a thing. One rock, all it takes, the aid of the halt.
Oh, that
Charge
sleep is
still
so
on the way
good.
back in.
That sleep is so painful, though, because Rio can't really help in the contest. Now he's back awake and onto the point just in time. A lot of progress already made here, though, for the Spark, and they do have the closer respawn in this situation.
Yep, the Charge, meanwhile, just trying to fully regroup. And oh, Shu finds Gushue, the heavy pressure combined. And the Charge, I mean, they're just about to push the Spark back.
Well, that's exactly what they needed to accomplish here. The one spot of worry, though, is that Shu is only on 40% Transcendence. He just barely got back into this fight. Bebe does fall, but he also trades for Eileen, so when Bebe's back to the fight, it should be a relatively straightforward Nano Blade here for Architect. Should be giving him the cleanup he's hoping for. It's really only Chara's Immortality Field that stands in his way.
I mean, how do they stop it? I mean, you're going to do the Immortality Field, but that probably won't be enough. I mean, what play do they need to just deal with Architect?
Pulse Bomb maybe? That's a lot to ask for on a hero like Genji that's just constantly going to be up in the air, dancing around. Nano Blade is going to come in.
The Nano's in. Okay, the Rock. That's one step. Forces out the early deflect. Architect going to the top, taken down! They mitigate the damage of the Nano Blade. But now, Godsby still working around the Charge, not out of the fire yet. And that's the danger of Nano Blade, Jake, is that even when you deal with it well, you invest so many resources and lose so much HP that often it's still not enough.
Yeah, Architect did just enough with the Nano Blade, finding one kill, dealing damage, and forcing cooldowns that Godsby, Gushue, and QOQ were able to just get a ton of cleanup pressure. Now as it comes to second point, though, once again, the same test is asked of the Spark. Can they make this happen without a Nano Blade? I think that's a very, very big ask. They might still look to go for it, charge up one more Nano Blade, and give it a shot then. Question is, are they going to be able to get it in time? It can take a long time to farm Nano Blade on a map like Hanamura against double shield.
I think part of me would have liked to have seen the Spark swap here because I do think, oh, okay, QOQ goes into the mines.
So fast.
Yeah, he just got evaporated. That was fast. I wonder if the Spark swap off this, like, take a very close look at QOQ, and okay, that's Azaria.
That is Azaria. I'm a little bit surprised to see this. It's, you know, buying Gushue a little bit more time. I mean, I don't think Hammond is really good in this situation either, so I think the Zarya is actually better. Given the fact that you cannot run D.Va right now, sort of makes sense. Awkward to play Sigma, you know, when the enemy team has an Orisa as well, that's going to give the enemy Sigma just a big edge. So the idea here is just to bubble Gushue in and try and get big value on it.
We'll see if it pays off. Architect, sound barrier used early. Architect just trying to build a blade quickly. Gushue down pretty quickly. Zarya bubble or no. And now I feel like Architect's in just build mode right now, where the fight not really going to go the Spark's way, but if you can get close to a blade, it's reasonably worthwhile, I suppose.
I mean, the man's named Architect. What are you going to do? He's just building. That's what he does.
I mean, it makes sense. It was in the name all along. And, all right. They're investing in the Nano Blade at least one more time, Jake, but do they swap if it fails to pan out?
Probably, but it depends on what they think is the best comp on this map. I do think they have a great chance to end the map right here. If Shu can't find the sleep dart on that blade, it could go pretty crazy here in the backline. You see Charge already trying to split up and mitigate the damage that could come in from the Nano Blade, but that means it's going to be a lot harder for them to keep control of the high ground. I think if Spark just take a straight up push, they can just walk out onto this Orisa and pretty much take control for free. They are going to like to go down mid, though. Straight to point.
Yeah, they're waiting. Architect super low. The Nano, nice timing. Right when they need it. Now, let's see if Architect can deliver. Takes down Krong. One pick off. Good enough. Oh, the swing could have been big, but the step back in from Shu limits the damage. Still, ooh, they lose Mika. The Spark already losing a bit of momentum. As a result, the Charge disengage there is pretty good, Jake. And now Happy finds Bebe, and the Spark, the Nano Blade Assault, not really paying off.
Ooh, nice tracking by Godsby. I'm not sure it's going to be enough as QOQ does fall down to his own right-click splash damage, just breaking himself on the force that is Rio's Orisa. And now Spark, they do find themselves in an awkward situation here. You almost have Grav, but you got a Genji. Okay, the switch is going to come in. It's going to be Mayhem McCree to combo with his Winston Zarya. This comp is looking very awkward here for the Spark. I don't like it. I think the idea is to try and make use of the grab and win off the back of it, but you just switch both DPS and both supports, so it's only the tank ults. Will that be enough to bring him over the line? Shu almost has Nano, Krong almost has Gravitic Flux. It's not looking great here for the offense.
Yeah, this is just weird. And Gushue immediately down. I don't think he was going to try and pop Primal there anyways, given the rest of the situation. I think the Spark just sort of throw this fight away, build as much as they can, and go in for one final fight. But this is tough.
Oh, this backline flank could be everything. Oh, the Lucio doesn't see him. Eileen's out of there, man. That's too dangerous. That's getting too hot. You don't want to risk a flashbang to the face there, especially when a pulse bomb will probably just get bubbled off by QOQ.
Well, not only that, but there's also a situation where the Spark are the ones that have to make a move here. They've been a very just tough position. Gushue has the primal super early, and now QOQ looking for a grab opportunity. Char, though, out of the fight early. Graviton into the back. The Spark with 2, but it comes at a cost. Happy was able to find Architect. Happy! So much room being gathered by Happy right now. Was just in the back, unaccounted for. Gushue's out of there, and the Charge continue the hold.
This has got to be the map here. Happy and Krong uncontested on the high ground. Godsby somehow does find a way through, finds the headshot on the Happy to shut him down, but once again, the defenders, they just have a great respawn here. They're going to be able to get back in position, and the comp is just so awkward for the Spark. The synergy is not really there. They just sort of stuck on QOQ with the Zarya. We'll see if Gushue is able to make much happen here on the Wrecking Ball, but Krog's already on the high ground, and he's just going to be free casting this entire fight.
The Spark hoping for a miracle. Gushue gives up his life immediately just to keep it in contest. Architect getting taken to task here in the back by Eileen. And the Spark, they're beaten down right now. Overtime ticks away. They can't keep it in contest. And we're heading to map 5.
Yeah, the reverse sweep looks incredibly possible right now for the Charge. They seem to have really come alive in the second half of this series. So the question is, can they take it on the next control map, where Spark did win the first control, but it was by the skin of their teeth, CP.
Yeah, it was very close. I mean, you look back to Kings Row 2. I mean, that was also a map just ultra short margin. Could have been a sweep, wasn't. The Charge were able to bring it back. I mean, I love the adaptation we've seen from the Charge, though. A team that simply struggled at the long-range game, doing better as things get more up close as the series goes on.
Yeah, and honestly, you know, if you look back to Ilios, you can kind of chalk that up to the strategies from the Spark. They won a round off the back of an intelligent sim and May play, just giving them a ton of point pressure. But when Happy started to change things up and actually move off of his traditional wheelhouse of the Widowmaker, he's actually had, I think, more success on the Ashe and the Hanzo. They've been even better performances for him. So continuing to show his prowess across the hero pool, you know, I think him and Architect are really a match for the ages here as the Spark and the Charge continue to duke it out.
It's been a long battle here so far, but map 5 awaits. We'll see you soon.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
The matches here in the APAC region continue to be thrilling. The Charge, who started off the series pretty rough, bring things back against the Spark. Map 5, now ready to go, Jake. This has been a ride.
Yeah, it certainly has. Sorry about that. Sorry, yeah, it certainly has been, ZP. I'm curious to see how this final control map will go. Spark did take the first time around and Normally, I would say that gives them an edge, but Ilios is one of the weirder control maps. Like, it's one of the most different, I think, from the average, from the norm. So I think our tiebreaker control map really is anybody's game, especially as Happy, where, you know, normally you think of him as being a Widowmaker specialist. That's his best hero. I think he's had even better performances on the Hangzhou and the Ashe this series.
Yeah, I think so too, and I would just go back to the idea that I think when he's playing those heroes, those are heroes that can apply a little bit more pressure to the opposing Tracer. I think that when Happy is playing those heroes, Architect has to think a little bit more about how to go in. It limits Architect's viability, while at the same time, doesn't really seem to be affecting Happy as much. So I do wonder what we're going to see here as we head into Oasis. And I mean, think about Oasis overall, it's not a map that you necessarily have to use something like the Widow on. And if I'm the Charge, I look at what's been working and I just stay the course.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, you know, bringing out the Ashe, the Hangzhou could be a potential here. We could also see some dive mirrors, as both teams did showcase comfort on the dive on Hanamura Point A at the very least. So it's really it's anybody's game what heroes they're going to play. What I hope, though, is that I don't want these teams to be bringing out the Pharah. I feel like the Pharah, every time it comes out, maybe it's good on a map like Gardens, you know, you could see it there. But I just think the overall team comp, they haven't been paying off with the Pharah. The Ana that's left on the low ground is just such a big vulnerability in those compositions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult, right? Where the Spark definitely found success with it yesterday, but I also think the Charge are just uniquely suited to shutting a Pharah down, even more so than arguably New York is, right? Where Happy seems to relish those situations, and I tend to agree where, you know, it's something that the Spark enjoy running. I don't know if it's the best case option here against the Charge. I think that it would be questionable. However, on the same note, I think on Gardens, it's still something that is pretty likely to come out because it seems to be part of the Spark DNA. We'll see. I think Charge, though, might have the answer for that if that's what we end up seeing.
Yeah, that I think probably will define this series. But the other question in my mind is, as we go to a map like Oasis, a map like University in Oasis, the question is, will the teams favor that continued Mei Ryan strategy? Will they go for like a fast Doomfist play? That's where it's pretty open-ended. You're probably going to play a Brawl comp, but what exact variant do you go for? Without Brig in the pool, I think it's a lot more open-ended than usual.
Yeah, and I mean, that's also been another thing to worry about here too, where we haven't brought up too much, but the hero pool, I mean, that's why you've been seeing more Genji than normal, right? It's not that the buffs are in, they're not. It's that the indirect mega buff is in, which is that Brigitte has been exiled to parts unknown, at least for the remainder of this week. But now, you take a look at things, the Charge have fought heavily to bring things back, and, you know, again, I don't know if we're going to be seeing a Widow here on Oasis. In fact, I don't think we will. If we do, we'll be on City Center, but I don't think Happy has any huge reason to go back to it.
No, Widow's not really great on any of the stages. Maybe on City Center, as you said, but it's not really necessary. The key difference between the compositions are Spark's going to first take a TP out of spawn, which should be that make them be just a little bit faster to mid. But it's going to be Bap versus Moira. That's the only difference. So Charge with an advantage in the shield break, that immortality field. But Bebe going to be able to do a lot with the Cole.
Charge super low early on. The immortality field, the only thing saving them, but that could be enough. QOQ gets knocked off. The aggression getting punished. And the Charge much further ahead. Even with Happy falling, the Charge can just run at the Spark. They do just that, and it should be their first control.
Not a fan of the Moira here, frankly, for the Spark. Yes, you can get Coalescence, but I just think Batiste is just a way better hero right now. Amplification Matrix can just blow up an entire team, whereas the Cole, yeah, it's going to give you more sustain, but you won't be able to charge it as fast, and you don't apply the same amount of pressure until you have the ultimate. Bebe, really a much weaker hero, I think, when he doesn't have the ultimate online, and Shu should be able to just blow this fight out of the water with his Amp Matrix.
This is definitely a situation now where the Spark, the intro alone is going to be very difficult. The Amp Matrix just delays the Spark significantly, but Happy goes down! Architect threads the needle, finds a headshot on the Happy, and the Spark get the break they need. They move on in. Architect's Blizzard does the rest, and the Spark, what a turnaround.
How does Architect already have a Blizzard? This guy's a freak!
Yeah.
He's 40% up on Blizzard? Blizzard
and
after the first fight? That's absolutely ridiculous, ZP.
And got the opening pick, by the way. While we're listing the accomplishments, Architect having himself around.
Well, he's just got to be raining in the headshots to have that ultimate up so early. Eileen's probably like, how the heck did he do that? Eileen's having a decent game, and he's only at 60%.
Godspeed getting caught, though. The Charge, they have their opening pick of their own. Not great for McCree's on the opening, as it turns out. Krong, Lux, really grabbed anything there. Charge, though, still in a decent spot. Eileen, a Blizzard up, waiting for it. Rio drops a Shatter, puts 2 on the ground, forces out the beat. But I'm not sure. Oh, QOQ! Close range battle. It takes down 2, the Spark. With a little bit of life here towards the end. The Charge pushing the Spark out, though, so they still might get the flip, even as the Spark hang around. IDK. I don't know what IDK was doing there.
Oh, Krong, that perfect timing with the shield to save his ally before Godspeed could finish that flashbang kill. Nice work by Charge coming back into that fight. As you said, Krong, he didn't find anything with that with the Gravitic Flux, rather, but he did fly up into the high ground, which gave him that dominant position. But it was really Rio's Shatter, I think, that blew that fight wide open. Now Spark, they've got all the ultimates they could possibly want, really, to get the recontest going. Gravitic Flux should make it a little bit more awkward for Shu to get value out of this Amp Matrix.
Charge hanging up on top. They still have the beat, something that the Spark had to use in the failed last fight. So Charge working with a little bit of an advantage on the support end here. Bebe uses the Cole, but not getting too much here just yet. Using it for a little bit of pressure on Rio. Now it's going to be a lot of pressure. Immortality filled out, so is the beat. And now Rio has to be saved, and he's not. The pressure too much. Rio couldn't get away. We'll see if Happy can make up the difference. Found Godspeed, but being down Orion, real difficult in a fight like this. Gushui just swinging away, but the main pressure actually forced him back a bit. Gushui gets caught, and the Charge continue to maintain control for now.
Another Blizzard comes out from Architect. He's trying to keep this round in contention, but Krong also has another Gravitic Flux that Blizzard doesn't find anything because Chu's drone is just perfectly placed. This Batiste is getting so much value in the long fight, and now tanks are online here for the Charge. They are stabilizing on point, starting to generate a ton of value over time. Godspeed does turn around with a pick, though, and without any DPS, Charge, they might lose control at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Spark's just about at full strength. As soon as QOQ gets healed, if QOQ can get away, I think the Spark have this. Gushui under a little bit more pressure. QOQ was able to roll away. IDK dropping the beat. Only Architect not hit. And the Charge just playing a little bit of rope-a-dope right now, but Krong gets just ringed with a haymaker at the very end. So the Spark,
turning around.
50%. Okay, they drop the Shatter. Gushui looks for it. Rio drops the Shatter and hit Rio's Shatter way better. Far better from the Charge. Rio gets much more. And that should be the round.
Rope it up, man. They're climbing off the top ropes and delivering a nice RKO body slam. Coming in. GZ Charge in total control there.
We went from boxing to wrestling real quick. And that was just nice positioning from the Charge. Even when the Spark looked like they had that about turned around, they found a way to make that fight their own. And I looked to the tank difference there. Rio landing 2 crucial Shatters in the round.
Yeah, I did a nice job while the enemy Reinhardt is freezing. Gushui knew he was dying here, so Gushui has no choice but to blow the Shatter, but Rio is just so patient and then delivers a crucial Shatter of his own, and oh, it catches the Coalescence. And then look at this follow-up from Happy. The angles are just perfect here from the Charge. Love that team play.
Yeah, I mean, it was just perfect, as you say. Like, I was looking for another word. It's like, nah, it's brilliant, fantastic. Call it what you will. It's good Overwatch, and the Charge are 1 round away from taking down the Spark.
Love the TP here out from the Charge. It's going to give them great position. Even though the enemy team has Lucio, they're going to be in fine position on point. Happy in an off angle. The rush comes in, but feels a bit awkward. And oh, Happy's just pecking away at the back line. He's in such a great position, they can't possibly chase him down.
I really love what Happy's Hangzhou is bringing to the team right now. The versatility, keeping the Charge in it. They've adapted over the course of the series, Jake. They've learned, and the Spark now in a very difficult situation.
Yeah, I just don't like this Moira pick coming out from Bebe. I just think the BAP is so much more effective, even if you're going to play the rush comp. I think BAP is a ridiculously strong hero right now. Immortality Field adds so much to the squad. We'll see if Bebe's able to do more with the Coalescence. He can possibly get value out of it, but again, it's just another rushing strategy here coming out from the Spark. We'll see if this one pays off.
Early halt, Spark shrugging it off to a degree. Godspeed a little bit low. Gushui in danger, getting focused down off the Discord Orb. Gushui, can he get away? Super low HP, just barely getting healed up, and there's a little bit of an overdive for it. Architect there in the punish. Eileen, though, Pulse Bomb doesn't get what he's looking for. The Spark still up in numbers, and this is looking like it's going to be a Spark flip.
Yeah, this time the rush pays off, and I think that's crucial because Architect got that opening kill onto Happy, shut down that flanking pressure from Hanzo that has been such a thorn in the side of the Spark, as they do finally have point control. This is where the Reaper comp is a lot more effective. I think retaking is much more difficult than holding point. especially because the Charge, it's hard to leverage this range damage they're featuring, you know, when you don't have point control, when the enemies can just hold on corners and rush into you when you're at close range.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that works a little bit against Spark here is that if the Charge are quick, the beat's not going to be up. Shu's going to have Transcendence. It's a lot more powerful than Cole in this sort of situation. I don't think the Charge are going to be that swift. They drop the Supercharger early, and okay, Gushue gets caught. I think it was a wall that kept him out of position, and suddenly the Spark, they have very few options for winning this fight.
Yeah, and Krong just slams QOQ to the ground. When Rio gets the opening pick on a Gushue, you know you're in trouble. Gushue gonna switch over to the Hammond to hopefully delay point here. I don't think he's even gonna come to the fight. No, just gonna come back on the Rhyme, but he does lose his Shatter Charge because of that. Pretty painful here. Time Bank starting to be pretty much even here for both sides. But Spark, they do have Architect's Blizzard to work with. That is their hope really in this upcoming fight. But you need to get more than Rio. Rio could just fortify that off and easily walk off. You also need to find somebody that can't be saved by Shu. Architect could also solve that with the Ice Wall, though.
We'll see what Architect has in store. The Blizzard going to be up here. QOQ soon have the Flux in. IDK says it's time to go. The beat is in. The Spark move over. And Shu going to match the beat of the Transcendence Charge. More than willing to counter-engage. Architect still in there. They have the Flux come down. The Charge bouncing back. The Spark yet to get an elimination, but there it is. Krong finally caught. IDK for the knockoff, and the Spark just off one elimination, very close to retaking the point.
IDK doing a nice job dancing around, being a nuisance, but Charge, they're still committing. Shu and Chara each find kills. The M-Matrix comes down and is proving to be so valuable here. Point still in control. Spark, they do get the flip, but I think it might be too little too late. Charge, they're back in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing this really costs a Charge is that rather than the fight or the match just being over, the Spark will get an opportunity to come back in, but they don't have much time at all. QOQ will not be back in before the contestant. Architect's down! Chara able to find him. Godsby. I don't think he's going to be able to fully get away. Okay, he gets away just enough. The Charge don't chase it down. The Spark, they saw an opportunity, but Godsby's caught. Happy takes him down. There will be no Death Blossom from the back. And the Spark falling one by one. The Charge bring the series back in full. And the Spark, they started out strong, Jake, but the finish from the Charge far better. The reverse is complete, and the Charge take the series.
What a beautiful reverse sweep out of the Guangzhou Charge. As you said, taking really rough losses. I thought that series could have been closed out pretty easily by Spark, especially after they beat Happy in his wheelhouse on the Widowmaker duel. They were able to defeat the Charge. That was where they looked at their strongest in the past. But Charge, they're unfazed by it. They shake it up. They play new comps, and they come out on top, proving that they're not only a highly skilled mechanical team, they also have the diversity of the strategy and the depth and mental fortitude, really, to go into a long series like that with confidence. Incredible reverse sweep by them.
Yeah, and that was, oh man, it was a series, and it just continues to happen. It's a time of day, whatever you want to call it, here in the APAC region where the games have just been fantastic. But that does bring us to our player of the match presented by Xfinity, and once again, it's going to be Happy.
I mean, you got to give it to this guy. He just went absolutely nutso. On the Widowmaker, had a decent performance, but, you know, unlike how he usually plays, where the Widow is his wheelhouse, he takes over games on that hero, I felt like it was the Hangzhou and the Ashe where he really shone brightly here for the Charge, especially on those last 3 maps of the series, bringing that reverse sweep back, making it possible. Those so many big moments on, you know, flanking on Ashe, finding big pickoffs, or coming in on the back line on Hangzhou to secure maps like Hanamura, and of course the final map there on University City Center. Just really, really impressive work by Happy, showing flexibility and depth.
I will say, you know, look at the player of the match. If I could look at this and go, how would I go about it? In a way, I almost want to give it to the entirety of the Charge just for the adaptation over the course of the series, where it was pretty incredible, where you think about how it started out, how the Charge essentially had to change their strategies midstream. They had to also just change it for King's Row, which doesn't fit into what they've really been good at recently, and they made the adaptations well. It was by a razor's margin, but it still works out, and they get the win over the Spark.
Yeah, I felt like once they started winning maps, the momentum just built and built and built. You know, for Chara and Shu, they had really amazing synergy on the uses of that amplification matrix in particular. Felt like every time an AM matrix came down from the Charge in those latter 3 maps, Shu was right behind it, dropping huge right clicks, burning down tanks almost instantly. So I love the choice to continue to pick the BAP in that scenario. And then in the tank line, Krong getting tons of value in the off angle. Honorable mention to QOQ, though both Sigmas playing at an incredibly high level this series. We saw a ton of fancy tech and really, really well-placed ultimates, rocks, everything you could ask for out of your Sigmas. Both teams really delivered in that category. So this is some very high-level Overwatch we saw today.
Yeah, I'll say this for QOQ also. QOQ started out the series super strong, and I think the Charge adapted to how QOQ was playing. QOQ was very aggressive at points, recklessly coming in from the off angles, and you do that a little bit too often. The other team, well, guess what? They're going to learn, they're going to adapt, and that's what the Charge did here today. But guess what? We still got 2 more great matches yet to come, and what's up next? That's right, it's the Hunters taking on the Dragons.